Welcome, everybody, to Culz Talks Pop Culture, our final one for 2024, and the penultimate episode we're going to be releasing before 2025. Today, we're going to be talking Sonic the Hedgehog 3. We got David, and we might be having another guest so that we could have the number 3 on here.
Really, 3 for 3 makes sense,
3
right?
for 3, yeah. I mean, honestly, that's not what we're going for, but if it works out that way. David, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, sir. How about yourself?
Not doing too bad, all things considered, but was able to watch Sonic, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I think this is probably the soonest that we've done one of these talks to it coming out, I think, right? Because it hasn't even been 2 weeks yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Joker might have been pretty close. It's either this or Joker. I know Crow, we waited till it actually came out to stream because we didn't want to pay that much money, but then we ended up paying more money to stream it. So actually, I think
we paid in dignity.
Yeah. I think we actually had to stream it because no theaters were showing it after like 2 weeks. So
it did leave very quickly.
Yeah. Well, before we get into Sonic 3, what was your first like interaction with the property Sonic?
Oh wow. Honestly, I think Sonic is probably one of my very first video games. The original one on the Sega Genesis. My older siblings had one, and that was probably one of my very first video game interactions. Actually, was the first Sonic game, and I can't. I mean, I've always been a fan of Sonic. I can't say I'm like a super fan. I mean, as you can tell, I've always been a much bigger Nintendo person, but I've always definitely had respect for Sonic. I think he's a fantastic as far as mascots go. Like he was made to basically counteract Mario. Like that was the whole point of him, and I think they did a great job. There's a great rivalry there. I remember how hype it was when Sonic got added to Super Smash Brothers. And you could actually, have that rivalry happen. But yeah, I mean, Sonic's always been a great character. I know he's got massive lore that I don't even know half of it, but with all the comics and the cartoon series and everything. But yeah, it's been almost one of those lifelong franchises for me that it's always been there in some capacity.
Yeah, I was going to say, I tried to get the best. This was probably about the best one I could get, but it's Sonic running away from the Orca and Sonic Adventures.
Love it.
Yeah, that was definitely me and my brother. I remember us playing this all the time on the Dreamcast. It's just one that has stuck with me. It's one of I think I have like 10 Dreamcast games to play on my Dreamcast still, and it is one that I still own. Just because maybe it's some of the nostalgia, but I do enjoy it. And I don't know, I was kind of hoping we get some chaos in the Sonic franchise. I'm assuming at some point.
I definitely think the Sonic games for Dreamcast are seen as some of like the best of what happened on that system. I know it wasn't around for very long, and it's not a ton of games, but I do hear the Sonic ones commonly pointed to as like those were actually good on that system, and people wish they wanted those coming out on other systems to play them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dreamcast had a handful of those kind of good ones, and then I think the developers kind of gave up on that and went to Xbox. Because it was going head to head really with some of the other platforms, most notably like the first PlayStation, which was kind of kicking its butt, unfortunately, at the time.
I know Sega kind of stopped making their own consoles, and Sonic is now one of those characters that's kind of out there for everybody at different consoles. So he didn't really stick to just one company the way that like Mario and Nintendo has.
Yeah, which, Nintendo doing something right there, perhaps. There are some like parks with Sonic, correct? I feel like there has to be.
There's none in America that I can believe that he's a part of yet. I think there's been like some pop-up attractions and stuff in Japan, maybe that kind of thing. But theme park wise, there has not been any major Sonic attractions yet. But I mean, it's only a matter of time. Now that we've got Super Nintendo Worlds and everything happening, somebody's going to eventually be like, hey, what about this Sonic dude?
Yeah, I was going to say, considering just Universal's like all the Nintendo properties they're bringing in, it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, hey, what if we just do a Sonic coaster?
Exactly.
Especially we're getting rid of a coaster.
Yeah, what character looks better for a roller coaster? Like it lends itself so well to that kind of thing.
Yeah, and speaking of coasters, oh, I saw a rumor of what that coaster was going to become.
Oh, the Rip Ride Rocket.
Yeah, somebody posted it, and I meant to download it. Now I don't remember who. But yeah, at some point we'll talk about that. So, okay.
Oh, so real quick, just talking about that. Do you know originally before Rip Ride Rocket happened and everything, they were one of the possible things that could go there was a Back to the Future roller coaster.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And they had like, and it was going to be a specialty DeLorean that was made that would be like the coaster vehicles. And you would start off by like going through Doc Brown's garage from the first movie where he's got all the clocks everywhere and everything. And there'd be like Einstein's food bowl and stuff. And you would go through all that and be getting on the like the new DeLorean, having of course to get up to the speed limit and everything to hit it. I thought that'd be really cool. Like,
Yeah, no, that would have been awesome.
yeah, I almost hope that they bring that back someday because even an older franchise like that, it's still going to be, I think, a bigger hit than a lot of the newer stuff out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we're looking at franchises that they could bring back, I think Back to the Future obviously still has a presence in the park,
Definitely.
and another one that almost you could. I don't know how you'd make a roller coaster out of it, but Ghostbusters. I mean, they're kind of pushing that back into the park. It goes through the old, fire station that was
Even
part
if
of the
it's not a roller
Ghostbusters.
coaster, I feel like you could at least do like a dark ride or something.
Yeah, something, right? I mean, it's a property that's still ongoing. It's not a dead property or anything like that.
As far as
So,
I know, the only thing they've ever had really Ghostbusters was the show that used to be
mhm.
that became Twister eventually. Now that's even gone. But that's the only thing they've ever really done. I think a ride of some kind would be amazing.
Yeah, because it was in the fire station part that the roller coaster goes through now, right?
Especially if they could do it before we lose any more of the original Ghostbusters. At least maybe do like cameos for them in there or something like that. I think that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, kind of like Brandon Fraser in The Mummy, where he's just
Bingo.
like, "Someone give me my cappuccino," and then he's like, "What?" So
And I
good.
love that that's like a fake ending, like you think the ride's over, and then
Mhm.
it just plunges you straight back in. Like that is such a good ride. I know they're like being doing a really big refurb on it right now, so I'm excited to see how that looks, kind of spiffed up.
Yeah, no, when I went on it on in September, it's one of the few ones I went on a couple times. Obviously, I didn't have lines, so it made it easy to go on them a couple times.
Sure,
But I really enjoyed that one. I wasn't sure because I was like, we'll see. And I was like, no, that was pretty fun.
it's one of my top roller coasters. I'm not a huge roller coaster person, but I love them if there's a good story, and this one knocks it out of the park. There, like the immersion and everything, absolutely fantastic. It's one of my top 5 coasters for sure.
What's your best one in Universal?
Universal. Probably the Hagrid's motorbike because it does the same thing. There's animatronics. There's like a whole. They have a whole drop. Like that's awesome. Super great ride there. Mummy probably number 2 if Universal's Mummy because it's just so good. Like Hulk is a great coaster. Velocicoaster is a good coaster, but they don't really have as many elements of what the story is. So it's just like okay, it's a good coaster, and sometimes that's fine. That's all it has to be. But I like it when it goes that extra mile to be like an immersive experience.
I mean, I think that's what makes some of these theme parks so good is you feel like you're in the movies. You can go anywhere, and ride, or you could go to SeaWorld and ride the roller coasters if you wanted. I want to go
Exactly.
there and be, in a place I've seen in the movies. So,
Like if I just want to go for coasters, I'm going to go somewhere like Cedar Point where they have like the record breaking, massive
mhm.
giga coasters and stuff. But at a theme park, I want things to be themed.
Right. Whoa, it's almost like it's in the name, David.
Like honestly, I am super excited. We can do a whole episode about this in the future, but I can't wait to see how they change Rock and Roller Coaster at Hollywood Studios for Disney over to a Muppets ride.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I guess I can see it. And obviously they're doing that because I think they knew there was gonna be some backlash with getting rid of the Muppets.
Yeah.
And so they're like, how can we kind of keep it in?
I'm hoping what they do is they find a way to move over, Muppets 3D into one of those areas and just have like a newer theater.
Well, from what I heard, it's supposed to be. Aren't they taking over the Rock and Roller Coaster or something like that?
That's what we're talking about. Is that it was probably like there was some pushback because they knew they can't just get rid of Muppets. People love it too much.
Yeah, it's a classic.
So, I mean, I'm excited to see I love the Aerosmith ride there now, but I like classic rock, so it's great music, fun, experience in it. but I'm more excited for the Muppets. If they do it right, this could be a killer roller coaster.
Before we go any further, Grayson, how are you feeling on what looks to be a fantasy football championship?
I mean, it took what 8 years to get here, but hey, we're finally crossing the line, buddy.
Hey, I actually looked, and a player you have on your roster now was on your day one roster, and that's David Njoku from the Browns.
Yeah.
He's
That's your
an
boy.
original.
Yeah, OG, ride or die, baby.
I may or may not have been making the thumbnail for tomorrow's episode already, but you know.
Hey,
I mean,
what happens.
even with CeeDee Lamb going down, you still got it done.
I mean, Baker Mayfield, dude, I was not expecting him to be pulling out almost 60 points
Bro,
this week. That was nuts.
He pulled out all the stops.
I was like, all right, I guess he really wants to take Tampa Bay all the way. So I'll take what I can get, buddy. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I texted Matt today and I was like, so Gibbs just needs like an MVP performance. And he's like, not going to happen. How's Grayson doing? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't talked to him yet. I'm sure he doesn't want to jinx it. Anytime like the Browns are doing good too, I'm like, don't say anything. Don't jinx it. Just let them win. Then talk to Grayson.
Dude, 100%. When I texted you during the game where I was like, this is insane, I knew as soon as I said that text. And of course, just what happened.
They're like, oh, you want to see insane? Watch this.
Like, we're going to throw three picks, one after the other. Let's go. It's fantastic. Felt great.
And every time before he threw it, he was like, just for Grayson.
I'm like, Jameis, you felt my spirit. You felt me compliment you guys from afar. Oh, felt so good.
Oh. All right. So, Grayson, we haven't got too far yet. I mean, we just kind of kicked off. What was your first experience with Sonic the Hedgehog?
Got it right behind me. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. One of my favorite games of all time. Definitely was my first foray into the Sonic games. Actually, no, now that I think about it, had a family friend that donated a OG Sega Genesis back in the day. So I got to play like Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 on the cartridges. So
Nice.
that's old right there. But yeah, Sonic's always been one of those things that's just been a part of my childhood and, you know, part of the foundation, so to speak.
So you really got the reference of blowing into the thing and putting it back in
100%
during the movie. I mean, I feel like all of us should get that because there's so many times you're like, it's not working. Hold on. All right, it works fine.
There's no scientific way it should work. Oh, look at that. It works.
Oh man. Yeah, and then we were asking. This is kind of what got us onto the theme parks. We didn't know if there was a Sonic theme park or ride anywhere in the world. We figured maybe in Japan. I feel like Japan would have to have one.
I mean, I'd hope so, but I don't think it's like any. If they're going to, it'd be like at Universal Studios, kind of like what they're doing with Nintendo. So they'd have to. I could see in the future that incorporate a ride somewhere.
That's exactly what we said. I don't think there is one yet, but now that Super Nintendo World's out there and how successful that is, I think it's only a matter of time before somebody. I mean, especially as well as the movies are doing. This is like the Sonic resurgence, and it's been around for so long that they shouldn't be worried about it like losing popularity. It's a character that people are always going to love.
Exactly, and I think honestly the hard part's going to be now is it's kind of like the Marvel Disney side of what they had in their theme parks as well is Paramount owns the rights to these Sonic movies. So are they going to have to try to trust the fact that like if they lean into the very strict Sega licensing that's partnered with Nintendo, are they going to like try to hope that people still come to the parks with that or what? Just wonder how that's going to look logistically going forward if they decide to do something like that.
I would definitely say they'd be smartest to probably lean into the games more than the movies, just because I think the longevity is going to be more there, but who knows?
Yeah, very true. I'm just more concerned about how like Paramount, because they do not like to play nice in the sandbox at all.
With anybody, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, it'd be cool if it actually comes to fruition one of these days when I'm like, 65 and it finally happens.
We're just in our rockers and we're like, oh, we gotta go.
I could die of a heart attack on that ride.
Gotta go fast one more time.
I can't wait to fill my Depends on that ride. It looks so much fun.
Hey, you know, if they really wanted to, they could just go with the ugly Sonic design.
I
Speaking
mean,
of
again,
that,
that was the funniest part of the Chip and Dale movie.
yeah.
I have my own show where I ride with the FBI. No, that was a deep cut. I'd not expect to see in that movie. Which
Yeah, it was like I can't believe how many people agreed to play like part of that movie with how many cameos and references to everything. It really did feel like a modern day like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. They did such a good job with that movie.
100%.
Hey, at some point we should do a Roger Rabbit versus Cool World kind of comparison.
Keegan, you just like putting us through horrible situations just to see what happens.
I feel like this is the first good movie we've gotten to do on this.
I agree.
Hey, and you know who we got to thank for that? The fans. Thank you for voting and making us go watch Sonic. The other 4 options, a couple of them turned out to maybe be ones. It's a good thing we didn't go into.
I think Craven was the only bad one, and that's the one you wanted us to do.
I heard Lord of the Rings wasn't very good either.
So I heard it was good, but Lord of the Rings and anime just didn't work.
I heard the medium was not the right medium for what they made.
Right. I heard like the story was fine, like all that was great. It's just that it was too jarring, I think, from what people expect from Lord of the Rings. And then the anime style. I think they thought that like how Castlevania did so well with anime, and they're like, oh yeah, it'll work. People just don't want that.
Well, it's like it's one of those concepts where it works as a TV show, not a whole full-fledged animated movie.
Right. Like if it went to streaming in like 3 parts or something, I think it probably would have done a lot better.
Exactly. Like if Amazon would have released it, you know, like alongside or like intermittent between, you know, Rings of Power just to satiate some fans, I can see that being way better. For sure.
Because I mean, even Rings of Power, it's been all right. There's definitely some complaints, I would say, but it could be worse.
Aren't they making a Hollywood like version at the same time to kind of contradict Rings of Power?
No, the Hollywood one they're working on right now is going to be like Peter Jackson and everybody. It's The Hunt for Gollum. So it's going to be much closer to what we've seen of Lord of the Rings. Rings of Power is so far back from that.
Is it going to be 3 parts again, or
this is only 1, but there's a second movie they're making that they haven't said what it is yet, but it shouldn't be like a sequel to that, but it's going to be another Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings, like what we're aware of kind of movie. They just haven't said what it is yet. Hi Aaron, how's it going?
We're just here talking. Well, we were talking Sonic. Now we're talking Lord of the Rings.
Well, I mean, it is a pop culture show, so
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
And and speaking of pop culture, there was a big casting today. Grayson, who got casted in what movie?
Man, if you're talking about good old J-Mo getting casted as, I can't remember his name right now.
Lobo,
that's right.
It's a mascot of the New Mexico college team.
I mean, my dude, like when you said, like, I honestly just saw it before I hopped on, but I'm like, there's no way. I'm pretty geeked about that casting. That's going to be pretty.
Did y'all read the post that he did to announce it?
No, I gotta look that up now.
He basically, it's an old interview that he did where he was saying how growing up and stuff, like his favorite comic was Lobo. And because somebody, like a reporter was asking him, like, would you do that? And he's like, oh, I loved it. And he's like, you know, nobody said anything to me, but if they ever call and say, hey, come audition, come do this, I'm 100% there, all this. Like that was the Instagram post. And then his caption was just, they called.
That's sick, dude.
I think he's going to nail it. I mean, he was fine as Aquaman, but I think he fits so much better in something like this.
1000%. Like he like if only The Rock could have put his ego aside to be Black Adam, this is that type of casting where he fits to a T, without a doubt.
Yeah, if The Rock would have been fine going the route of, okay, I have to fight Shazam, and they would have made him just like, instead of having his own movie, I think it would have helped them a lot.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, actually having him lose to Shazam because that's part of the character's kind of back
and
forth.
And I think that would have been fine, but he wanted to be no, I want to fight Superman.
I'm so good, but I'm so bad, but I'm so good at the same time.
See, and where did he want to go with that? Did he? Because he wasn't going to be okay losing to Superman. Were we really supposed to believe that Black Adam beats Superman?
Yeah. And what world does that happen? No.
Yeah,
I mean, he did say the hierarchy of power in the DC universe was about to change. So I think that is where he wanted to go.
I guess he doesn't understand that he and Shazam literally have the exact same power.
Well, it's like it's just he wants to say he's like, I'm here for the fans. And it's like, okay, buddy, you want to beat Superman? That is not at all what happens in the comic books because Black Adam always loses. He wins for a little bit, but then Superman always pulls out ahead. So you gotta know who your audience is there, pal.
And a 14-year-old kid kicks your ass on the regular
every single time.
That's just how it is. And it's kind of like we couldn't have Shadow beat Sonic. Nobody wants that.
Well, and I think one thing with Shazam, it's going to be a hard character to pull off because they got to make those movies quickly. Because the kid's going to age up, unlike in the comics. And that's what they kind of ran into in the Shazam movies, was all the kid actors got too old.
And, I actually really enjoyed the first Shazam. It was probably one of my top Snyderverse movies. I think they did a great job. It was fun. It felt comic booky. They did a good job. The second one, they just tried way too hard.
Yeah, it fell into the Aquaman 2 one, right?
All I know is that nobody wanted the Shazam-ly thing. Nobody wants that.
People wanted Shazam versus Black Adam.
More than this because no Shazam-ly is no good for my bottom line.
I mean, yeah, because from what I remember the comics, it was him and then Mary, like the girl. Like they were the only ones that were really ever like prominent and doing things and joining Justice Leagues or whatever.
Those were the OG characters for sure, but it was definitely like I know in the new 52 they rolled out the
rest of the kids.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. New 52 did a lot of bad things, so we try to just sweep a lot of that under the rug.
I've got a great idea. Let's incorporate that into the cinematic universe because all the fans loved it.
Okay, so the screen, the background you switched to there, is that a clip from the Escape from the City scene in Sonic Adventure?
Yes, it is.
Because that is my #1 Sonic song ever.
I mean, I'm going to be honest.
Such a hype beginning of a movie. I mean, of a game.
Like when they started, so I know we haven't talked about the movie yet, but when they started getting into like all like the Sonic Adventure 2 battle references and like the second half of the movie, I'm like, please give me something. Give me like a little something just to give me the city escape, just something. I need
like,
a surfboard.
If the next movie opened with like him running from what we'll talk about later, but just like escaping through the city and playing that music, oh my god,
dude, with the funky bass tone going on just to lead in this.
Yep,
100%, dude. I would be on board 100. Like if they just released a 2-minute clip of that, I would be
like, I'm not gonna lie, I have that on my playlist that I jammed to that in the car sometimes just driving. It's such a good song.
Around at the speed of sound. Sorry, got a little carried.
Follow my rainbow. Yeah, dude, it goes hard.
Well, when he was just like, because they did put a little bit of that in there in the final fight, and I was like, I was like trying to contain myself. I got a little emotional in that like second half, just seeing that kind of just come to fruition here in like the Adventure 2 battle theme, and then like having them hearing some of those references in there. I was getting a little choked up, to be honest with you. I was like, they know what we want. It's great. Oh my god.
I will say they've done a really good job of, for the most part, being good with the fan service without being too heavy-handed.
Agreed.
They do good at the Easter eggs and references without it being like, oh, remember this from this? Like, they don't do that.
Dude, when Tails did the whole, like, I know the perfect place we can go to regroup, and it's the Chow Garden. It
was so good. The only thing I didn't like, I wish that the Chows were actually in it as like their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was such a fun part of like that game and other ones where you like could adopt your own, you could kick them around, you feed them.
I mean, that was like half the fun of the game was that. And I think honestly, once we get deeper into it, just with how much they were bringing out of like the extended lore, I think they will make a full appearance, like, because obviously this world knows what they are.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a full appearance of them at least at some point.
Well, and especially with the next character that we saw at the end of the movie that's coming into it now, I think they're going to keep going with those deep hits with more characters showing up that we've seen.
It's like if they at some point introduce Cream, you can't really ignore, the best friend of that character is literally a Chow. So
Yeah, I think Cream will be in there. I think Rogue the Bat is going to be very soon, if not the next movie, the one after.
absolutely.
Now, this is movie number 3, but it barely got off movie number 1, mainly because somebody made some creative design choices. Grayson, what were your thoughts when you first saw the OG Sonic the Hedgehog trailer?
I was immediately checked out. I was like, if this is how the Sonic looks now, there's no way this movie's going to be good. There's no way this movie's going anywhere. There's no way Paramount's going to make their money back.
Hold on. Are you telling me that with that look and Gangster's Paradise, you weren't sold?
Hard to believe. I know. I was like, that was probably should have got me in the seats ready to go. But, the sphincter eyes of Sonic was definitely a little off-putting. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I remember watching it and I was just like, wow, this is a choice.
Well,
And obviously I was not the only one. There was a huge backlash against the design.
Now, my question is, do you guys believe that all of that was fake? Because I know that's one of those big conspiracy theories that they deliberately did it looking terrible, knowing people would be outraged and be mad and then be like, we fixed it for you, so that people would come see it and be like, yeah, they listened to us, when they never had any intentions of using that original Sonic, that they always had the good one ready to go.
If there was not a delay in the movie's production, I would 100% see that.
I'm just glad they, like, fake or not, I'm so glad. If we wouldn't have gotten that changed, I don't think anybody would have seen that movie.
No, 100%.
It could have been the exact same movie, but if he looked like that, they'd be like, no.
It would have been a Crow 2024 all over again. Whoa.
I mean, honestly,
that one literally just took this and was like, that looks good enough. We're gonna get human body Sonic with human face, because that's what the kids want to see. Horrors beyond all comprehension.
I do love that they put that Sonic in it though, when he like draws it or whatever and like holds it up, like.
Yeah, and I know the intro in the first Sonic, they've said they had to go back and heavily adjust because of the design. Good. Where it's like, yeah. And I was like, that was a good choice. And I was just like, at points I was like, I wonder what Tails would have looked like.
Yeah, like how would Tails and Knuckles have looked from there.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see somebody make a rendering of Shadow as Ugly Sonic. Because he, at the very least, would have to have looked exactly the same.
All gangly and just
it would have looked like a hate crime.
It is a hate crime to
the
senses
hating
are
humanity.
Still unusual punishment.
So obviously they went back and changed the design, put out the trailer, and everyone was much happier with the more accurate design, which feels kind of like a thing we shouldn't have to say. Just make it look like what people want it to look like, and people will enjoy it. Especially when it's a beloved video game franchise. And I know it got a lot of people to go see it that way too, where they were like, hey, they actually put the work in to change it and listen to us. Let's go see it. And so I'm sure that helped it do well.
I think it gave people hope that they were trying to please the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I think Disney still needs to learn. When you're adapting something that people already like, you need to keep it close to that, the thing that they loved. They didn't say, hey, I love this, make something totally different.
Wait, you mean modern audiences and just current audiences were not clamoring for a live action Lilo and Stitch? David, I am taking it back.
To be fair, the Lilo and Stitch has actually got a lot of hype on it. I think people do want that. And the fact that Stitch actually does look really good. I'm talking more about like the upcoming Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs looks terrible. We saw what happened with things like Little Mermaid. Even The Lion King did not do very well. I don't think Mufasa did that great, even though it's original. Like it just, there's no heart in what they're doing. It's very obviously cheap cash grabs.
100%. Like Disney, I don't know what it is about just modern day studios, but it feels like they've lost their soul.
Yeah, like you don't need to change something. If we loved it, you could take like the Aladdin is a great example. They could have taken the Aladdin script and literally just been like, here, act this out. These are the same lines, everything, just real people. And it would have been fine.
maybe toss in a new song here and there, but everything else could have been exactly the same.
Just take, like, you already have the movies made. You just have to redo it. It's not that difficult.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I think it's just the fact, like, the Marvel machine in and of itself, when it started hitting full steam, I think a lot of studios just lost the plot, because now we just have horrible movies that are just horribly written, horribly acted, horrible CGI, and it's just on a churn. And then they keep losing money. And then for some reason,
why? Why aren't people watching these?
Exactly. And then it's like they just let, they use the actors just to, like, voice, studio complaints saying, like, well, the fans just didn't show up, or blah, 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 blah. But it's like, no. We could tell that you were giving us hot garbage, no matter how much you wanted to dress it up. It's still going to be, no one wants to sit through that, because there's better stuff to do with your time than just watch nothing for 2 hours.
I mean, it took Sony 15, 20 years to finally phone it in and be like, all right, we're done. We gave up.
I mean, hey, it's not official yet. They're talking about bringing it on back, because now we've learned our lessons.
It reminds me, what is it? Is it the SpongeBob meme where the guy's like, "How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?"
Yeah.
Like that's how it feels. Like, stop.
Well, so you want to know something that might make you more angry about the Sony movies? Their contract with Marvel did not make it so they couldn't use Tom Holland in there. They just decided not to.
I do
include
think
a Spider-Man.
There's like some weird stuff with it. It's only Tom Holland, though, that I think there's anything weird. If they would have said, hey, we're going to use Andrew Garfield Spider-Man for these, there would have been no issues. They wouldn't even have to give Marvel any money, I don't think.
Yeah, they could have used Spider-Man.
They were Tom Holland is the only one that I think there's a little bit of, like, some strings and stuff to it if they use him, and money-wise and stuff like that. But any other Spider-Man, and don't tell me if they wouldn't have brought, like, Toby back for a movie, people wouldn't have been there.
Well, wasn't like one of the negotiating points with Kevin Feige, like, he was like, because we're working on this our major timeline, like, you can't have any other live action Spider-Man other than Tom Holland in those movies, or something like that, or
it's something like that. But I do think they can use the other ones as long as they're acknowledging that it's not the same timeline.
Yeah, and
as long as it's like a multiverse story that has no anything to do with the MCU, I think they're free to do whatever they want.
And originally in Venom 1, they filmed with Tom Holland. They just cut the scene.
Which just goes to show Sony has no imagination, and they just need to sell off Spider-Man, because it is not where it needs to be.
I mean, you're talking about the same company that tried to do an Aunt May origin movie.
I forgot about that. It's just, God, it's...
Hey, she was a super spy.
I can't fathom why they make the decisions they do. They'd be so smart just to be like, hey, Marvel, toss us $3 billion and he's yours.
Well, it's honestly, if you look back, I feel like, how history kind of just, doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I feel we're kind of back in the, like, where Hollywood was in the early 70s to late 70s, with just how much crap they were putting out that wasn't good. There's the occasional hit here and there, but a lot of it, like, they were in the same slump that they're in now, where it was just a churning machine, and there was no, like, originality coming out. It was just a bunch of just spin-offs and remakes of a bunch of other stuff. And for some reason, even though we keep going through this just as a society and just history as a whole, you can't really run a creative industry as a business. You are there to make money, but you do have to let the creatives work. Otherwise, there's not going to be any money to be had. And for some reason, them including AI is not going to be the best idea. And then I think that's just going to end up blowing up in their faces, and they're going to lose even more money. It's going to be a bad gamble either way.
Yeah. I mean, just pay creative people what they deserve. You're going to make so much more money in the long run.
I mean, haven't they made a movie with AI already?
They have, and it's like blown up in their faces, but they're still pushing for it.
It's because they don't have to pay it as much.
Exactly. And then it's like, look.
But they end up losing money in the long run, because it doesn't only ruin their reputation, but it's not bringing in any money. Mm-hmm. So even if you're only paying a fraction of a regular movie, if nobody's seeing it, it's still money down the drain.
And then on top of that, if creatives know that you're willing to cut corners and just use AI, they're not going to want to work with you. They're going to leave you high and dry, because they know that they're not going to be valued for what they can bring to the table.
And that's why we're going to start seeing even more of these more independent companies getting big hits out there, because they're the only ones doing original good content. I mean, like A24, it's been growing huge. Blumhouse, companies like that were kind of like smaller studios and kind of more that indie feel, they're actually giving people room to be creative. And I think actors also are willing to take smaller, salaries to be in a movie they actually like, or they're like, hey, people are going to enjoy this. It's going to get my name out there. I'm proud to say I was in this movie, as compared to, yeah, you made $20 million on that movie, but it was shit. Do you really want that associated with your name? How many bad movies do you have to be in before nobody cares that you're in a movie?
I mean, if you're Nick Cage, right?
That's different. That's a different category.
He was just trying to pay off Ghosts.
He was trying to pay off some big debts for owning, I think it was a Tarbosaurus skull that got him in a bunch of legal trouble.
Well, Nicolas Cage's whole thing is because of the curse of the house in New Orleans. So,
Yep.
Well, isn't he also a Coppola, right? Capella?
Well, he's
Yeah. Lord Francis. Yeah.
He's like his nephew or something.
He's his nephew. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a nepo baby. I know. They called in a lot of favors.
Shane, we were rooting for you too with the cows.
I wasn't.
I mean, maybe not this week. I forgot you guys played. I totally didn't set my team this past week. But anyway, to not get off topic, Sonic 1. David, what were your thoughts on that film?
I actually really enjoyed it. I think they did a really good job. I do like Jim Carrey. I think he is one of those actors, though, that is kind of the same role in a lot of things that he does. Like, my favorite Jim Carrey movie is probably The Truman Show. I feel like that's where he got to do the most acting and not just being Jim Carrey. The Mask is also fantastic, but again, that's a lot of going between normal guy and Jim Carrey guy. But I was a little like, I don't know how he's going to do his Robotnik, but they did a good job of kind of making it like Robotnik's origin story and him kind of at the end becoming the Dr. Eggman type character that we know. I think Sonic did a great job. The graphics looked a lot better. They did a good job of making it, a family movie because kids could still enjoy it, but it still catered to people older that grew up with it and everything. So I think they did a great job of that. And I don't know about you guys, I was super hyped with Cable Guy. Yes, that was a good movie too. But I was super hyped at the end of Sonic when like Tails showed up and looked fantastic. I was like, yes, this is where it needs to go. And I think they made a really smart choice in this franchise by not including all the Sonic characters right off the bat. That they're kind of building it and getting that cast to slowly grow out and not just being like, here's 20 weird little alien guys, have fun. I feel like that would have been major overkill. You can't do that in this kind of movie. But yeah, I think Sonic 1 was fantastic. I think that year was actually probably one of the best years ever for video game movies because we had that and Detective Pikachu, which is another movie that I think knocked it out of the park as far as being good for a video game franchise and loyally putting it on the screen. But that's a different deep dive.
Right. Yeah, no, video game movies are hard, I think, to translate because a lot of it is the experience of playing it as the player. So, to see some of them start to be able to translate mediums, I think's been good. And what you're saying, David, is they shouldn't have introduced like all of Sonic's like cast members via like a CCTV footage on like a thumb drive that he got.
I mean, maybe if there was like a guy like spending a lot of like a rich guy,
like
and he was like, and we
just
find out he's investigating.
Like yeah.
Look, guys, we just need to use what we have. Gun comes down, takes Sonic away, just puts him in a room and is like showing all the videotapes and is like, "This is your team. Here we go.
Good luck.
You're gonna save the world."
Grayson.
I do feel like if they keep going too much longer, though, it's going to outgrow the need for his human friends element.
I feel like we definitely saw that a lot in this movie, for sure.
Yeah, they were already kind of the side characters to it, but they're just the compelling amount from them is very much lessening each movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and as you guys honestly brought out, I think, Keegan, to your point of like what you said with them making a video game movie that's good, I think they were able to get to what made the Sonic games popular as in the most part, which was it's an adventure game. It's a racing game, but it's an adventure game at the same time, especially for people that that grew up with the games that we all played, my generation played, and even a little bit younger. They're adventure games, and they definitely captured the essence of that with, Sonic 1 all the way up to this one. It's, an adventure. It's a fun time. It's a ride. It's something that you don't really get to see all the time, but it's enough fun for every age group where they can at least have something that they enjoy with it.
And you don't have to have watched like 40 movies before it, and you don't have to overthink it all. It's pretty like, this is it. They're on an adventure. Stop the bad guy.
Exactly. It's like each one is its own episode. It's fantastic. Like I've seen Sonic 2, but I forgot what happened in it before this one, and that did not play in any effect in this movie at all. It was just episode after episode after episode.
Well, yeah, I even watched the Knuckles miniseries, which was pretty good. Like, no problems there. But I didn't have to watch that to see this. Once I watched this, there was like one reference to it, and it was like a minute-long thing, and you would have been fine if you hadn't seen it.
And I, to that point too, I think that is honestly a lost art, to where the movie should be the meat, and then the show should just be, you know, little side adventures, little fun stuff, something to build the world if you want to put time into it, but not what the world relies on you building out your understanding for the movies.
Yeah, I think Marvel needs to do that a little bit more, but I will say I give them a little more like leeway on it, just because the medium they're coming from with comics, they did very much build on each other. So I get that. But even in comics, they usually have like, these 10 issues are the main story. This is the big set. And then anybody you personally like, you can read the like offshoots of your personal favorites and see, like, fill in the gaps.
And I mean, honestly, to that point too, it's like they built the big five with Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, and Iron Man, and
Hawkeye,
that one. And those were the main staples in that universe. And I think that's honestly what they should have done for the movies, is just kind of keep it on the big heavy hitters like they usually do. You know, your Spider-Mans and so on and so forth. And then if they wanted to have the TV shows, like to enrich the universe or build off a little bit more to introduce some villains, that's fine. But it does need to be more, the main events of movies need to be concentrated on building the universe for people that want to spend the time watching it. And then, as you brought up too, David, just having those side shoot-offs for the characters you want to see, but not necessarily making it reliant on telling the entire story for the whole cinematic universe.
Right. Like, I mean, even as a huge Marvel fan myself that does see it all, it kind of sucks when it's like, but you're not going to understand this movie unless you've watched these 2 TV shows and these 3 movies before this one. I can see that being a turnoff for the general public if it's like, I got to do homework before this.
Right. And I mean, honestly, speaking of which, I honestly think that that's going to be a large drawback for Captain America: Brave New World. And I think with, like, you can kind of tell they're kind of relying on like a lot of the stuff they built up over the last couple of years, like TV show wise, to try to tell this story a little bit. And I don't think it's going to be something easily translated to a lot of audiences that are just kind of, you know, tuning in here and there.
Yeah,
to see
they're going to be like, wait, that's Falcon. Where's Captain America?
Exactly. And then it's like, I'm pretty sure like they're teasing that Martin Freeman's character from Black Panther is going to be one of the bad guys, or one of the, you know, people in the shadows, at least from like the new trailer that they released after the 87 reshoots they've done on this movie to you know, make it semi-watchable. So I don't know what they're going to do or how many people are really going to feel.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out where they're going to fit in the fact that Rhodey was a Skrull for like most of the movies that we've seen him in.
Right.
Like that came out of nowhere, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he'd even know Tony Stark died.
Yeah, like it's going all the way back to what, Civil War, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That he just hasn't been there, and nobody. Oh, all right, we just replaced the black guy and nobody cares. Like, bad precedent.
So
Marvel,
on a offshoot with Marvel, is Captain America still coming out in February?
Yeah,
because I know they're reshooting right now.
But it's set. It's the Valentine's Day movie.
Mm-hmm.
They've done. I personally, I think Thunderbolts is going to be way better.
I agree. I think it's going to outperform this by leaps and bounds.
I think it's going to be a much better movie. I think they've put way more world building into it, and they've got way more to come together for that. I hope it's good, but I don't have high hopes for Captain America.
Like, it'll be sick to see Red Hulk, but that's honestly the only thing that I'm like digging from this movie coming out.
And they had to put him in the trailer because other people weren't going to see it otherwise.
Exactly.
I mean, other Marvel movies, they could have held that as a surprise, but now they've got to be like, no, we've got to put that front and center of what's happening.
Yeah, they're losing too much traction, and I think honestly, the height of the Marvel machine is unfortunately at a decline, and I think they're going to have to do a lot of, fan building up again to kind of get back in some good graces or at least making good, decent movies for people and fans to go watch.
I think Thunderbolt will do a good part of that, and they've got to knock it out of the park with Doomsday and Secret Wars.
100%. And I think honestly, if they start kind of, like not necessarily not releasing stuff, but just letting off the gas, because they have like let down a little bit, but they're like trying to ramp it back up again to catch up with like what they pre-announced and already have filmed. But I think if they do not kind of slow down like what James Gunn is doing with the DCEU and try to make sure their projects are, sound, good, and releasable, they're going to be in a world of hurt. And then I think DC will take that crown away from them if they're not careful.
To bring it back to video games, I think Miyamoto, the guy who created Mario and like one of the head guys at Nintendo, he's always had a really, I think, great philosophy. And somebody asked him once about like, does he get stressed out like about releasing games late if they have to delay them or whatever? And he's like, no, because our philosophy in making games is once you release it, it's either going to be, a bad game is always going to be bad if you release it too early. It'd be better to delay it and make it good so that you're proud of what goes out there, even if it means they have to wait longer, because he finds that fans are willing to wait if the product is good in the long run for it. So Nintendo, like Samus, Metroid 4 that was supposed to be coming out, Metroid Prime 4, they've literally delayed that by like 3 years because it got really far and they said it was terrible. So they said, we're going to scrap it and start over to make sure that it's a good game. And I think, me personally, I would much prefer, even if I have to wait longer, I'd rather have a good product at the end instead of having something shitty just pushed out there to meet a deadline.
Yeah, it's just like it's exactly like anything you consume. Would you rather have, a nice, long-cooked, home-cooked meal, or would you rather just, settle up for, McDonald's? McDonald's is nice every now and again, but if it's every meal, you get sick of it pretty quick.
Yeah, and there's no anticipation for that. You're not like, oh man, I can't wait till I get McDonald's next week. Whereas like, oh, Thanksgiving's next week, and I know it's going to be, cooked up, and you're waiting for it, and it's great. It's like, it's just silly. I think Marvel definitely, they're doing the right thing by slowing down. They just need to keep at it instead of just being like push. Like I'm fine with the fact that Blades had so many issues, so that hopefully when it does come out, it's something good.
I was going to say we had a pretty good conversation about McDonald's one day, David.
They used to be our sponsors.
Yeah, they're not anymore.
We had a renowned author ruin our credibility with them.
It looks like we got Nolan on here. Nolan, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing pretty good.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Is my microphone on? Is this thing on? Okay. Anyways, what's up, gents? How we doing?
Doing
pretty good. We're doing
good.
great. We've just really started talking about Sonic. What was your first experience with Sonic just in your life?
I know I don't look like it, but I am one of those elder fellows, you know what I'm saying? So mine was literally playing the game that you have as your background.
That's what I said. Yep, back on the Genesis. I remember
playing Sega Genesis.
Really little.
Like that was one of the ones that was in rotation. I remember it was Sonic and one of the first Mortal Kombats.
And then the Jurassic Park game on Genesis. I remember playing that.
I never played that one, but does anybody else remember the Home Alone one?
Oh my God. You had the time limit to go around and set the traps.
Yeah, shut the stupid, and then you shoot little at the airport. Oh my God, the game sucks so bad. It was so hard. But maybe it's just because I was young. Anyways, yeah, that was my first dealings with it or whatever, was exactly that. Just playing Sonic, hearing the sounds. Sega. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Ring, ring. Yep. So that was my first experience with that. It was definitely during the time that it actually like came out, and it was cool to
absolutely same
go fast.
Yeah, gotta go fast.
Now, Nolan, what was your reaction when you saw the OG Sonic design from the original Sonic movie?
I would like you to have viewers, so I'm going to refrain from using the language that I normally would use. No, it was awful, by the way. Like, it was terrible. I was like, what is this? And I do remember Aladdin, by the way. Yes, the comment there.
The Aladdin was such a fun game. I loved when they re-released the Disney classic ones, like on the more modern consoles. I played that in Lion King.
I remember the Lion King one. I remember Lion King being the most hardest game in the world ever, in the history of ever, for some reason.
Especially that I just can't wait to be king level, where you had to like switch the monkeys around, and my Super Nintendo went through a lot of hours trying to get that
as
right.
like a a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid. Like that's hard. It was awful. But yeah, sorry. Anyways, the that design was terrible. I was like, I don't know what were we going for here, gentlemen. Can you please elaborate on what we were trying to do, because this is
how can
insanity,
we
you know
kill
what I mean?
all the hype?
So yeah, I was just like, oh my god, that looks awful. Like what do they think Sonic is? Yeah, and then it's just of course I was like happy when they fixed the design, and I was like, thank you, that's a little bit better. Like, yeah, he doesn't exactly have the like connected eyes anymore, but like, you know what I mean, like at least kind of gave him the right shape and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that first design was terrible. Did not enjoy that at all. And I was like,
and I mean, he's roughly been the same looking guy for decades. I don't know why they felt like they needed to change that.
His like 3D form, I remember it from probably the one behind Gray over there, the like from the Dreamcast when they like introduced Shadow, you know what I mean? Like it was one of those things, this little like 3D form. But it's been the same for, you know, when did the first one come out? 2017, 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Up until that time, like Sonic was literally the same. Like there was no changes, no nothing. Like maybe they kind of like made his sneakers a little bit smaller and not so like big and ridiculous, but like for the most part, unchanged. That's just how some characters are, right? Especially when it comes to like Nintendo products and things like that. Like Mario still looks the same. Like no one ever tried like a redesign on Mario and Luigi, just because it's like classic and it stays there and that's just how it works. So, you know,
and they did a pretty good job with the recent movie. I thought it was all right.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's just same thing with Sonic. It's like there's no need to change designs. There's no need to make him look like more like a real hedgehog or less like a real hedgehog. I don't know.
Could you imagine if they would have gone with just like a photorealistic hedgehog?
Just blue?
I was taking that over what they gave us for that first design, man. I'll be honest with you.
At least it looks like a real hedgehog.
Exactly.
I would have preferred that.
I think even like I think it was like one of the original like either director interviews or like something like that. Somebody might have said like the studio wanted like people to connect with the hedgehog more, but it's a timeless character that kids have grown up with for forever. But for some reason, the studio wanted it to be more human-like, to have audiences connect with the hedgehog, which still baffles me to this day.
Well,
if
it's
anything,
crazy, right? Because you say
you
want them to connect, but it's like you did the exact opposite. Like
Exactly.
everyone like was like, "Oh, get away from me!"
It like super accentuated him
Yeah.
being an alien. Like there was no connection. It made him very much look like some freaky ET looking thing that just showed up.
Exactly. I mean, but it's like if he's had what 30, 40 years of like, you know, brand growth. You know what Sonic looks like. Everybody has a connection to what Sonic looks like. Why would you alter that in any way?
What if they did make him look just like ET but blue?
I mean, it would have beat the original design, whatever.
They're just like, this is actually a sequel. I think that's when we got to talk about the original like sequel idea to ET. That was gonna be like super dark at some point.
Nocturnal Fears. That was the name of it. ET2 Nocturnal Fears.
Yeah, where they come back and it's like
that
super
will literally
dark.
give me nocturnal fears for the rest of my life. That's
Yeah,
what
I don't get why they were like, that would be a good sequel.
Maybe it was the same person that made Wicked because they wanted to make it unnecessarily dark.
They just made that book unnecessarily stupid.
Hey,
But we have a whole deep dive
Hold on.
about that.
We
I don't need
do.
to talk about that here.
hey, I was just plugging it, and in case you haven't seen our Wicked deep dive last Friday, go check it out. Nolan, what did you think of the original movie then when it came out?
the first Sonic movie.
Yeah,
I thought it was awesome. Like especially when they made the changes or whatever. It came out and I get it because like realistically, like this turning games into movies is very difficult for a lot of people, right? Because it's like we have maybe a couple like Sonic. I don't know what's another
Detective Pikachu,
I guess. Like, but that's the thing is like that started out as a show, not a game first. I'm talking about like things that were strictly games first, like adapted.
I think the game came out first. The original Detective Pikachu game.
Was it?
Yeah.
I think you're right, David.
Huh. Okay. Well, either way, it's still, you know,
Or
transporting
the
it, right?
Super Mario movie.
That's
Coming from an original game.
The second,
But the first movie was so bad.
the first, and this is what I'm
So
saying, right?
bad.
It's like the first movie is an absolute pile of like hot Koopa poop, really, and it's just like they got it right the second time. But like I said, historically, it's one of those things like video game movies are terrible. The first, well, okay, guilty pleasure. I love the first Mortal Kombat movie from like 1994.
But we love it because it's so cheesy.
Oh, it's super cheesy, and I will tell
Nobody
you right
watches it and is like, it's just like the game.
So
No.
it's one of those things. Like we had like a little podcast for a while, like with me and like a couple of the other Ghostbusters, so like Aaron and stuff. But and that was like one of our first episodes, if not like only episodes that we had, is when that Mortal Kombat movie came out, and we sat there and ripped into it for about 2.5, 3 hours. But it was just one of those things that like I will take rubber suit Goro over CGI Goro any day. So like that first, like I said, even if it's a guilty pleasure, I don't care. I just practical effects always work better for me. But that first one, I was like, I love that first Mortal Kombat movie. The second one was kind of meh. It was kind of missed a little bit, but yeah, it's great because it is like cheesy and like it just works. And it's not like the martial arts are bad or anything like that. It was a cool movie, especially when you're, obviously I probably have like, my 5-year-old glasses on where I was like, yeah, Power Rangers and people punching people in the face.
That's what the nostalgia. I mean, lean into the nostalgia with those movies. That's what they get
absolutely
made for.
I was like, but I mean, like even the like the early 90s like Ninja Turtles movies were cheesy as hell,
and they're still so much better than the new ones.
Still so much better than the other ones that they made, and they're amazing. Rubber Suit Turtles again for the win. Like, yeah, it's so they just have a huge track record of making terrible video game movies, and it was very nice to actually see one that was like, oh man, this is actually pretty solid. Even though like I feel like Sonic is a little bit of not a hard sell, but it's hard to make a story around Sonic like that.
Especially the original games, because there's like no
right. Because like I was like, realistically, what the point of the game is to just go collect coins and go fast. You know what I mean? It's like, so I guess really your story is open to interpretation. Like for the most part, like you could really do anything. So like the direction they took it or whatever it works. So yeah, I rather enjoyed it. I was like, oh, okay, this was actually like a really like I went in with like low expectations, right? Because video game movies, like every video game movie that comes out, I'm like, I automatically think this is going to be awful, just because nobody ever does it right. Like Resident Evil movies, terrible.
Which is crazy because those should have been so easy to make, and just like Tomb Raider movies,
they have the stories made. You don't have to write anything.
Female Indiana Jones, go, and yet.
Logistically, it writes itself, David. Like I was. That's
Uncharted didn't do very well, and they have such good storyline already in the games. They have
great games and story, and that boggles my mind. That's why I was like, I don't understand how you guys messed this up. Well, I do understand how they messed this up, but it's one of those things. Like realistically, that video game movies, to some degree, depending on the game, should be money printers. Like legitimately. Yeah.
What did you guys think of Silent Hill?
I don't think I watched that one because I was like, that's in scary movie territory. No, thank you.
What about Assassin's Creed?
I watched that one.
That was terrible.
And that movie was awful.
That was such a
half hour for that movie.
And that's another. See, Assassin's Creed is a great example of a video game franchise that should have been like a streaming series. If they did like a different timeline each season or something like that, and like tell the story and then move on. Well, this is they could kill it.
Oh my god, that I was gonna say that's literally perfect, right? Because they've had so many assassins or whatever throughout time. You could literally do that. You go, okay, yeah. So you know what I mean, and then like season 1 to get everybody biting on the hook,
and you could have a longer like overarching storyline of like the corporation and the people trying to infiltrate and stuff and going to the different assassin things. But instead, they're just like, what if we made it terrible instead?
What if we made it like, what if we made it terrible? And like, what if we just took like popular people and like put them in there? And like, that was about it.
Well, I don't know what this thing is that Hollywood's just decided if you have a big enough name celebrity, it makes up for no plot.
Well, I mean, it's been that way for like since Hollywood began.
Yeah, and it makes no sense. I don't know why. And I think we're finally catching on to like just because there's a name in it doesn't make it good.
You're like, let's check out the trailer first. Let's see how it looks.
Let's see what Rotten Tomatoes does first.
Exactly, but it's like with the renaissance of shows like even The Last of Us, that game in of itself is very episodic, and then stuff like Assassin's Creed, same kind of thing. So all those kind of ideas kind of coming together, where like you have the overarching story of the corporation, and then each assassin, even in the games, it's a very episodic story where you have a beginning, middle, and end to where everything that builds up to the like, final payoff for like the piece that the corporation's looking for the information to get, all the bits of historical, artifacts that control the world, definitely fits in to what could be a fantastic series of streaming or like a TV show, instead of trying to make it all fit into one movie, because there's just so much in there.
And even more so than that, like, it's one of those things, like, I feel like that world it's not like it's like Halo, right? Where you have like a main character of, even Halo has books, right? Of like other characters and all this kind of like other stuff, but like it primarily, the games focus on John, right? Obviously, but it's one of those things like Assassin's Creed, like the first one, you were Altair. The second one, and the one that everybody knows and played, I absolutely played the shit out of it with Ezio. I was like, because that dude, you know what I mean? Awesome, amazing, right? But it's one of those things that, like, you didn't even have to use any of those characters. You could have literally made any Assassin's Creed story you wanted. Like,
you could pick your own. You could pick a time period and just be like, "It's this guy."
Go. Yeah, and
nobody would say anything,
and nobody would go, "Oh, that's wrong." No, they wouldn't. Like, you literally have open, like, free reign to do whatever to make whatever story you want to make. It's crazy to me how, like, some people don't, like, get that. It's like, oh, we're just going to try to hijack characters and do other things instead. And it's like, but why?
It's like it was handed to you on a silver platter and you still
mess it up. It's crazy.
I mean, to that point, I honestly think that's where the Fallout TV show got it the most right they possibly could, by just creating 3 separate characters.
Oh, yeah.
That resemble like just separate factions, separate, like just entirely different play styles, as like every Fallout fan's analyzed. It gave them something new to dig into without,
without being like, this is exactly the story, or
Yeah.
They were like, hey, there's more people in this world. Let's go with this.
Because I mean, like, realistically, that's exactly it. Because like you have some reoccurring characters, but most games are all different, with all different characters that come out of nowhere and like different stories and all that. And it's just like, I appreciated that about Fallout, because that's exactly it. It felt like, oh, okay, so this feels like an entirely new.
It was the same world, but it was a different story that I could believe was happening concurrently to whatever I played.
To whatever, exactly. You're like, oh, so this is just a different person from a different vault in a slightly different area, kind of thing. And it's like,
oh, this is what happened in their part of the world.
Yeah, right, and, I mean, if you honestly look at like the tenured characters, even throughout like stuff like Fallout or any beloved series, they're not there to like continue a story along. They're just there to make the person that's experiencing that kind of content feel more like, like the world is evolving, growing, and aging. They're there to be a staple to make you sure that you still feel like you're involved in the same world with people that you like know and love in the world that you know and love, while letting you experience something new. Which I think for some reason with storytelling has been lost with a lot of like new TV shows, new movies, and all that kind of stuff.
Because like one of my biggest gripes when it comes to like stuff like that is like, and what I appreciate about Sonic, right, is like the fact that they're not making up any random characters. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, well, we need something to get people into this or whatever. We're just gonna make random character.
Yeah, they're not like
new out of nowhere.
This is like, Friezo the Hedgehog. He's your long lost brother, and he skateboards.
Yeah, and you're like, what? This is terrible. Now I hate this. It's like what? Especially when there's like when you have franchises that have so many characters to choose from, right? And it's like, I don't know why you needed to make another one. Like that's what like drove me a little bit crazy about the Mortal Kombat movie. Is I was like, there's a roster of 83 characters and you needed to create a new one for the movie. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like if the Mario Brothers movie would have had like a third brother that they introduced before, like Wario and Waluigi. No, this guy, and he's pink. Like what? We got
Mario, Luigi, and
Bruno.
Yeah, it's just like what? Bruno. Who the hell is Bruno? But yeah, it's so like when they do stuff like that, it's crazy. And I'm glad that they didn't have to do that, and then they didn't, right? Like I haven't seen like one random made up like new Sonic character so far.
Because they definitely could have. Like the world definitely lends itself that they could make some ridiculous character. Like the owls could have had like one straggler owl that's, the edgy one, or like why?
The edgy one. Yeah. And exactly. It's just like, why? Because that's most of the time I ask a lot of questions. That's my biggest one. 99% of the time is why? Like,
well, they're treading into some dangerous waters when you start hearing the name Sonichu thrown around. For those that know, you know.
I gotta go. I can't.
Hey, look, it's not happening yet, but they're pulling from the wrong war if you start hearing that name thrown around. That's that's a dark talisman right there.
Grayson, what do we tell executives when they may or may not be listening to our show? What do we tell them? Just put down what? Put down the pencil. No ideas.
Hey, look, not every idea is a great idea. Just put it down, think about it, do some more research on some of the, fan published, things before you start using those as canon. Let's just be careful. All right. Do some thinking.
Fan fiction is a very, very touchy subject as of
honestly, it's a totally different episode that we'll do someday, maybe. The whole Sonic Chew thing is like fascinating, like the whole actual curse on it and things like. Dude. It gets very paranormal. It's weird.
Have you seen some of those YouTube videos? There are people that have like done the entire like just mythology, and they're like hours long.
And there's people who claim that like their lives have been ruined by having like one of the amulets and stuff like that.
I saw somebody do the Green Goblin meme where it's like it's whispering to me. The amulet's whispering to me.
All right, so Sonic 2, David, we got another character introduced. Who did we get introduced in Sonic 2?
So the second one, we got Tails, who was kind of introduced at the end of 1 in the after credit scene, which was awesome. And then Knuckles made his appearance, which I thought was great because Tails did come along in Sonic 2. And then the third one was Knuckles, so they just kind of sped that up a little bit. I think that was fine. It didn't feel like it was overworking it by having too many new characters. Just those two coming in as the classics that everybody knows. I think it worked fantastic. It would have been overkill, I think, if anybody else would have been in that second movie, but they did a good job of making it kind of a Sonic and Tails adventure, kind of buddy cop type thing. And then at the end, Knuckles coming around to kind of join their trio. So I think they kept it going. I think 2 is actually better than 1.
Interesting. I mean, it's so like, because I agree with that like sentiment of like, because I was gonna say, like, I feel like a huge problem we have these days is like when we do get movies like this, like it's one of those ones that they either try to make new characters that are absolutely crazy, wild, or whatever, or 2, they just go, let's see how many characters we can fit in this movie.
Yep. And
it's like, why? Like, why are we trying to overstuff this? Like, I don't. It just feels like it's compensating for something. It's like, we didn't give you a good movie with good plot, good story, whatever. But we gave you like 17 characters though, right?
Yeah,
right?
They're like, yeah, we can make toys out of all of them.
Yeah, and it's just like, and instead of like people taking it as like, oh, you gave us a whole bunch of characters and all that, it's like when you have too many characters, you can't spend any time on them, so people can't really connect or do any of that kind of stuff either. So it's like you're kind of just being like disingenuous.
And that's why I think it was great that number 1 was just Sonic.
Yeah.
So we really got to learn his character and everything. And then I think they spent enough time on Tails and Knuckles in the second one. And then the miniseries with Knuckles that those characters are very fleshed out. It's fine to keep going.
1000%. And because I was going to say like, it's because you're exactly right. Like you get to focus on Sonic and kind of like learn. So because like, that's the huge thing, right? Is like, well, obviously we're video game fans. We've played Sonic. You know what I mean? Like we know who he is and do all this kind of stuff, but the casuals, if you will, don't.
Yeah, the general audience, and especially kids who have never played these games that just see like, oh, this colorful thing. Like,
right.
Why do you care about this blue guy?
Because it's hugely drawn. Yeah, it's hugely drawn to, you know, I mean, like kids and younger audiences or whatever, right? But that's exactly it. It's like you have to give them time to connect and actually like the character and give them a story and all this kind of stuff. Because if you put all of the, because like I was like thinking about it and I was like, yeah, if you put Tails in there and Knuckles and everything in the first movie, it
would have been overkill.
It's overkill. It's overkill and it's too much. And then it's like, oh, that was way too jumbled together. There's too much here. Like it wouldn't have worked. And you're like, yeah, it's not how that goes. So yeah, I appreciate the fact that they just kind of like hinted at the Tails at the end of the first one. And then
like I was telling them, I was super hyped, like seeing Tails appear at the end.
Oh yeah.
It was a perfect like post-credit scene. You're like, oh yeah, because everybody loves Tails.
Well, and that's what I thought was a really good decision too, was the fact that having Sonic not really know who they were from his own world and like getting to learn and meet them as well definitely helped make the characters become much more of a, you know, accepted by the audiences as well. Because
like we're all getting to meet them
as Sonic learned about who they were.
It's not like, oh, that's my buddy. I know this
my guy.
Oh,
yeah.
we have a history.
Oh, this guy.
Well, because I also feel like it's one of those things, like, because when they do that sometimes, and like dude shows up and they go like the friendship route or whatever, like, oh, I haven't seen that guy in forever. We're supposed to be friends. It's like, well, why didn't you say that? Like, you have
Why
friends.
is this the first time hearing of him?
Why have you never
Like-
said anything about your buddy? Like,
Like, you mean this guy that could have fixed all of our problems? You just never were like, I wonder where Steve is.
Yeah. And it's like, and Steve shows up and he's like, yeah, where were you last movie? You know, like what? So yeah, that's exactly it. So you just kind of get to learn and grow with the character, which is super awesome.
It feels like we've been talking about Amazing Spider-Man 2. Too many characters, random person. Harry Osborn just shows up, and and we're like, where were you the whole first movie? So Sonic 2 was also going to at one point be Jim Carrey's final movie. He said he was retiring after that one. They kind of had to pull him in. Are you guys happy he came back for 3?
100%.
I 1000% am a huge Jim Carrey fan. So yes, I'm happy that he came back. But it was one of those things that I heard the rumors are just because he needed money.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and I bet it's
whatever
fun.
reason he came back, I don't
Like,
care. I'm happy. Like
As somebody who's done acting and stuff, I just have to imagine that the role is probably a lot of fun on set. Like doing this, it's not super serious. It's probably not very hard. It's goofy, and they probably gave him a lot of money.
If you don't believe, I was like, if you don't believe David, go watch the literal dance scene he has with himself.
I mean, yeah, that whole thing, like
in spandex,
and like it reminds me that this is
galvanized.
I remember watching it and being like, "That's right, this is a kids movie," but it was just goofy fun.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's just, but I was like, yep, that just I was kind of getting like, what is it? Is it Olaf from
Frozen?
Series of Unfortunate Events?
Oh,
that he
Oh,
also
yes.
I was getting
No, I
that
didn't see
from
that.
the older Robotnik. Like I was getting like Olaf feels from him. So like, but it just, you're exactly right. Like it just looks so much fun to, I said, like essentially just go and dick around on set. And
I mean, this dude literally just introduced himself playing on his stomach for an entire audience. That was pretty much was like, okay, I'm roped into Jim Carrey being here. This is going to be great.
1000%. Because like I always say this, like Jim Carrey's probably one of my like favorite comedic actors like of all time, but it's also because I do not think, like, you can, write this down, quote me, whatever, in my humble opinion, right? I literally think that there is probably no other better like physical comedy actor than Jim Carrey.
I 100% agree. Like, you can't really, to your point, you can't point to any recent actors that have been able to emulate or even come close to his physical comedy just ability. Just like he still moves like, he did back in the day. Like he can still, you can kind of tell that age is setting in here and there, but he's still able to move like, like a Looney Tune like he used to do back in the 90s.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things, like, if you don't believe me, and if you've never seen the movie, and I can't believe you've never seen the movie The Mask, like that, just that whole movie is literally him just physical comedy ridiculousness all over the place.
Yeah, Jim Carrey at the height of his ability, for sure.
Yeah, so and that's exactly it. So it's and that's what I mean. Like, in my opinion, that you can quote me on that. I think he's probably the best like physical comedy actor of all time, if I'm being honest. So I'm always super happy to see him in movies doing Jim Carrey stuff, essentially, right?
Right. Looks like Mark Eddy's here. Mark, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Had a good Christmas. I know you did. We talked, but glad to see you here. Jim Carrey's an actor, and I think it kind of pairs well with Sonic kind of reaching a sort of peak in the 90s, and Jim Carrey was the actor of the 90s in a way.
Yeah.
Like, he is in so many movies where I'm like, oh yeah, Jim Carrey. I mean, shoot, Dumb and Dumber, we talked about The Mask. He was in Batman
You had
and
The
Robin.
Mask, you had Batman and Robin, you had 2 Ace Venturas. Let's see, what else was he
When did he
in?
do Man on the Moon?
99.
Something like that, because I was like, I think he did The Truman Show in like 99 too.
Yeah, that was his tilt into drama acting,
non-comedic acting. Yeah.
But honestly, one movie that I think was definitely like, I think it's underrated because it does still kind of give Jim Carrey a chance to act while still being physically comedic is Yes Man. That's probably one of my favorite movies by him, just because it does give him the ability to be like an actual character, but it lets him still show off those, physical comedy chops. But
Oh, 1000%.
yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, with just seeing what he did in this movie definitely took me back to like I honestly felt like a kid again in just the auditorium, just watching that happen. It felt like I was watching, The Mask or just any one of those Jim Carrey movies from the early 2000s where he was still doing his, or at least those movies I didn't get to see in the theaters, but on VHS, just him doing his shtick. I felt like a kid again. It was awesome to see him just kind of back in his element a little bit.
Well, it's crazy that you say like his shtick, right? Because like, yes, it is his, but at the same time, like when you're so good at it, like it's almost not a shtick, right? Like he makes it like an art. And that's what I appreciate about him is exactly that. It's just like, man, I only wish that I could like move half as like crazy or whatever, like as him sometimes. It's insane.
And I mean, to your point, even in this movie, he gave it his all. And the dude's in his 60s, but he was still giving it like he was acting like this was going to win him some sort of award. And that's just what you get with Jim Carrey, which is always fantastic.
Oh, always on, man. Like, and it's one of those things like, I feel like he like appreciates the being goofy and stuff like that. Like, even if he's like doing that, he's still taking like being goofy seriously, if that makes any sense.
So what do you think of the second movie, Nolan?
I think the second movie, was pretty solid as well. It was one of those ones like it was cool to see the team up with Tails, because you know what I mean. Then you're like, oh, okay, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes right here. It's like, okay, cool. And I say that because like I've learned that for me, like most of the time, a lot of like movie series is, I generally like the second movie better sometimes, a lot more than the first with like a lot of things. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, but there are some ones where the first one and the original one is like by far the best. But for me, it's like I'm excited to see Sonic and Tails, and then of course they bring in Knuckles, which is my favorite character. And I was like, oh, I can't argue with that. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, they made him voiced by Idris Elba, which makes me even more happier.
Can we talk about how point on they've been with all the voice casting?
Oh, 1000%.
I think they've killed it. Like Keanu Reeves as Shadow, pitch perfect.
Well, you know what the crazy thing is? Like to me, like I'm sitting here listening, and like even though I know he's like the voice of Shadow, it was very rare like times that I actually heard Keanu Reeves.
They do a very good job of they go into the character. You don't be like, oh, that's Idris Elba. Like it's not so much that it takes away from who they're supposed to be portraying.
Correct. Yeah, and it fits the character, and like and that's what I mean. Is I was like, I'm not sitting there the whole time going, oh, that's Keanu Reeves. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh man, Shadow's dope. Like he's a badass character. This is awesome. And then it's like I was like, oh, but I forgot Keanu Reeves is doing his voice, like because you know what I mean? Because I'm not getting any Keanu Reeves. Oh, speaking, and
it's perfect because it was like just edgy-ish enough to fit him. Love it. Wild set. Rock on. Something that I really thought was funny with Keanu Reeves playing Shadow. Did any of you guys watch the Knuckles series?
No.
Okay.
Speaking of, was that a whole series that they made? Like
it was. It's like 8 episodes. It's on Paramount. And
wow.
It's really good. I mean, Sonic and Tails are in it a little bit. Like I think everybody except James Marsden and Jim Carrey are in it at some point. But in the series, because it's basically him training that guy that had the Chaos Emerald that Sonic got it from. It's training him to be a warrior and succeed at a bowling competition. It's pretty funny. But at one point, they are at that guy's childhood home, like hiding out from like they're fugitives. And in his like childhood bedroom that he's like laying down in, there's a bunch of movie posters. There's absolutely a couple of Keanu Reeves posters on the wall. So I was like, so Keanu Reeves could meet Keanu Reeves in these movies.
Well, David, one thing I wanted to touch on with just your bringing up the fact that they wrote to the actual characters. I did not think when I first heard that they were writing Knuckles as like a dialogue, kind of like the meathead-ish aesthetic. I wasn't like super behind it until like the character kind of came out more in the second movie. And I 100% agree. I think that is just the essence of the character now because it fits just what you know about Knuckles entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because I never like thought about him or like I like just even his character design. Like he doesn't look like the like sly, smart, like sly talking, like smart fox, calculating type. he's literally a dude with boxing gloves with spikes on them. Like,
yeah, he's literally the punch it first, ask questions later.
Oh, 1000%. And that's what I mean. Like, you just look at his character design and you go, oh, this dude is definitely a punch first, ask questions later type of individual. he ain't got a lot of thoughts up there. And the only thought is, I'm gonna punch it. Like, that's
he's like, I have a moral code and stick to that. Everything else, that's gravy, whatever.
1,000,000% muscle.
Oh yeah, 1,000,000%.
And it works so well for Idris Elba.
It does. And that line was amazing. I loved it. And it was one of those things like just my writing brain when he came and because I love doing stuff like that, is like predicting what they're gonna say before they even like say it. I knew as soon as he caught I was like, oh, he's gonna say something about the damn muscle. And I was like, 1 minute, I was like, yep, there it is, nailed it. Just because like that's just, you know, the writing brain kicks in sometimes when you're like, oh, this dude is gonna be cheesy as hell right here and say some super cheesy stuff, and then you're like, yep, there it was, nailed it almost word for word.
See, and it works perfectly because the whole point of the second movie, if Sonic and Knuckles would have actually just taken a couple minutes to talk to each other, there would have been no conflict in that movie.
There's no beef. Yeah, it's crazy.
But you had to have Sonic who gets carried away with his ego versus Knuckles who just gets offended and just go at it.
Let that be a lesson to those out there that scoff at people when they're like, talking doesn't do anything. Maybe be diplomatic first.
Yeah,
because you're exactly right. Like if they were just diplomatic at the beginning, like all of this wouldn't have been a problem. But then you don't get a cool story and, you know, cool fights between Sonic and Knuckles. And
I feel like we had that problem in Batman v Superman too, if they had just like calmly talked over what was going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, that movie was just Batman being like, we've got a problem, you know, like just kind of being a dick, really.
I mean, if you think about it, the problem that Batman had in that movie, like his thought process, is very similar to how they set up Tony Stark's feelings in the Avengers series about there being like an otherworldly threat kind of thing, or like, I gotta be prepared. Like I find this because I don't understand it, I'm threatened. They just did it much better in the Avengers movies and actually had it a longer, you know, and it wasn't just one alien. It was actually like possibly lots of threats.
Yes, a whole bunch of different ones. Yeah, because I mean, I guess you're right. I never really thought about it that way, like between like how Tony was going about it, but realistically, you're right. Like that's
kind of the crux of it. Yeah, being scared of an otherworldly threat and how can I protect everybody? And
then in the because in the first one they're like, oh shit, they brought aliens to us. Ah!
Right.
And then had PTSD about it for 4 or 5 more movies after that. So
exactly, and saying that's something you wouldn't see in a lot of like comic books or anything like that. They wouldn't give them those kind of flaws of like PTSD. But if you think about it, like he went through some messed up stuff. Like I get it.
Well, I would say because I mean, like realistically, like on that first Avengers, like he almost like died, right? Like, you know, I mean, like throwing the missile out there, so he was like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself, kind of thing. And then dude came back and they, you know, saved him or whatever. But yeah, he was fully ready to just take the forever sleep for everybody else to protect him, and that carried into all the other movies like after that. So
yeah, that he came so close to
All right, so Sonic 3. No, it's okay. I think we've actually done really good this one. I've enjoyed our listening, which has helped preserve my voice, which is not doing too well today. But so Sonic 3 gets announced because obviously 1 and 2 did really well. And they announced Keanu Reeves. What were your guys' initial thoughts with that announcement, Grayson?
Well, honestly, when they announced Keanu Reeves, I was kind of stoked, but at the same time, I just know how studios kind of go. First 2 movies were great, but with the third one coming around, just because it's Keanu Reeves doesn't mean it's going to be a good script. So I was kind of worried about them, you know, overplaying like the edginess of Shadow and just doing, you know, that super like, you know, hot topic-y aesthetic for Shadow's character. But I was pleasantly surprised with how they balanced everything out. They still gave Shadow the story that we were all expecting to see and still have that kind of just depth to it. And then with Keanu Reeves, as I'm sure all of us know, his past, he definitely, you know, translated that into his performance here. And you can definitely tell that he gave just the right performance to an animated hedgehog that was needed to make sure that it hit home with not only fans, but newcomers, and just made the movie that much better just with him being in it.
Oh yeah, 1000%. And that's what I was saying is like, I forgot that it was him sometimes. Like it was just the character of Shadow. Like You know what I mean? Because like sometimes you do, right? Like I even going back and watching like older movies like Aladdin or whatever, it's hard not to hear
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. Thank you. I was like, I spaced. Yeah, it's hard not to hear Robin Williams. You know what I mean? Like, because I guess that was they say like that's an issue that we've been having these days with like, because they used to use just voice actors and
I miss when they would do voice actors.
Yeah, and
now
like
every animated thing, it has to be here's the celebrities playing.
These
them.
days, it's just Aquafina, and it's awful.
Don't even get me started on that.
But that's what I mean, right? It's like popular person, like let's just put them in the voice or whatever, and it's like that doesn't mean they're a good voice actor. It doesn't mean they're good for this choice. And that's what makes that even better is the fact that Keanu Reeves, isn't traditionally a voice actor, but he comes in and absolutely, kills it or whatever.
Well, it's like
that it's him,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like we all know Keanu's had some good movies. Keanu's had some bad movies. In this movie, it felt like the first time in a while where it felt like Keanu was acting because it wasn't Keanu as Shadow, it was Shadow the Hedgehog with Keanu.
It was Shadow, yeah, and that totally comes off in the movie.
Absolutely,
because there are other times where like we'll use the Mario movie for example. I didn't really like Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong.
No, it's Seth Rogen still.
It's kind of it was just Seth
Rogen.
He
did nothing. Like even Chris Pratt changed his voice a bit to be Mario. Seth Rogen did nothing.
That's what I mean.
Like Seth Rogen reading it.
He just came in and like read it like as Seth Rogen, and that's what I was like. I really wish they would have chosen
like when he was Pumbaa in the Lion King remake. It's just Seth Rogen as
just
Pumbaa.
and that's what I mean, right? Like there's very classic examples right here of
and you can especially when you contrast it when you had his Donkey Kong and then Jack Black's Bowser being like fantastic.
Oh,
and then Seth Rogen is like, okay.
Well, I mean, I think the movie knew that because he was not in that movie very much. So I think they had him in there just to kind of be like, Seth Rogen's here, got him in, got him out, done. Which I think they knew.
Yeah, because he's not great. Like it just, I was like,
like I love his comedy stuff, like Seth Rogen, that's fine. But he's another actor that he's the same character every movie,
every time. Like if they would have had Donkey Kong with a big blunt hanging out of his mouth, I wouldn't have even been surprised.
No, I would have been like, I get it.
I'd have been like, yeah, well, that makes sense. It's
or if he just had like a banana there,
right,
like,
as a placeholder.
Or if he's just like, hey, you guys got any banana leaves?
These bananas make you feel crazy,
like, hey man, just a little bit of banana.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my god. But yeah, so Keanu did a great job, and I think it really does like elevate the character because it is a double-edged sword when you're like, oh hey, we're using popular actor or whatever for voice of whomstever, right? Because like even perfect example back to the Mario thing, everybody was like Chris Pratt, like they were losing their mind that Chris Pratt was going to be the voice of Mario, and it was like, okay, he really didn't do that bad, guys. Like he actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah. And I think Charlie Day was fantastic as Luigi. Like they worked really well together. She did great as Peach. As we already said, Jack Black definitely was the best as Bowser.
Killed it.
Like
1000%.
Most of that cast was spot on. And that's why they did so well.
I mean, even with Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong, that was definitely again spot on.
It was funny, yeah. And for some reason, we went through that year or two where he had to be in everything. You just like you turned around and he was in a new project doing so whatever.
He likes to get around. He's busy. He wants to stay busy or whatever. You know what I mean?
Fred Armisen's running a radio center in Fallout World. All right, that's cool. Fantastic.
Like I think. What I feel like, at least me personally from the movies, I do feel like all of the actors in it, voice actors, whatnot, I feel like they do have a certain level of respect for the source material. I think they actually do care somewhat, at least, about these characters. And I think that's what kind of helps them do it so well. You can tell that they're not just phoning it in. It's not just a paycheck. They're getting at least something, some enjoyment out of doing it and being a part of what they're building. Because otherwise, like, Idris Elba would never have done an entire Knuckles series unless he wanted to. Like, the man does not need money.
No, he doesn't. And it's like funny too, because like I think for like Idris Elba is like people know that he's an actor and all that kind of stuff, but like not a lot of people know that he's also like a DJ, like an actual DJ and makes actual music.
That's awesome.
Some of his stuff is like actually so, and I attribute to the fact that he is English, and it's one of those things that they have a huge like drum and bass, like electronic EDM kind of scene over there, right?
Yeah,
big scene. So it's like it's not too far fetched, like when you think about it in that term. But listen to some of his like actual music that he's made, like produced and like actually like made himself, and I was like, All right, this is pretty solid. Like I just almost got some beats. He's got some house music. I like this.
Speaking of which, have you guys either of you played any like the Cyberpunk like Phantom Liberty stuff in there?
I've not played any of the Phantom Liberty stuff yet.
I will say he puts like since obviously he's one of the main characters in like that little DLC thing, he does like have some of his music actually in the game. It is not bad.
Right?
Cool.
Like
it's pretty good.
I'm glad somebody else other than me has experienced it, because I was like, no way, I was a DJ. Like what? I was like, hold on, wait, what?
And when I heard it, I'm like, there's no way he's gonna be that good. And I'm like,
he strikes me as one of those guys that
some bangers, some house.
I feel like he got into acting and started making money, and then used that money to like pursue his actual interest too, just to be like, I want to do this, and
which I think is what everybody. What I think is what everybody.
That's the dream, right?
That's the dream right there, essentially. Yeah. So, and you're exactly right. It's like I don't think he's doing this for a paycheck. He's just like, sweet, I get to voice like a video game character, like
an iconic one that people love. Yeah. And I think a lot of them too do it because I know there's definitely in stuff like Mario and things people mentioned, they wanted to do something that like their kids in the future could watch and enjoy, like, that legacy for their children and to share it with them as a family. So I think that's pretty cool.
And yeah, especially because like when they do start to get like a little older or whatever, right? They're trying to be more appreciated, like like Chris Pratt telling his like kids or whatever, like he's like Star-Lord or whatever, and they're like, yeah, that's cool, we want Iron Man, dude. It's like, damn, that's tough.
Like, yeah, that's cool. So Iron Man, right?
Iron Man, right? Yeah.
Can you? It's kind of like what was it?
Here?
I want to say I think it was Paul Rudd. That there was like a picture of him and his kid from Halloween, and his kid didn't want to be Ant-Man. I think he's like Captain America or something. So Paul Rudd just wore his Ant-Man suit.
He's just like Ant-Man, like he's dressed like like that's funny to me right there. Is like when your kid goes, oh no, you're not cool.
Like, it's cool, Dad, but not my favorite.
But Iron Man's cooler. Or, Captain America's my guy. That's always hilarious to me. But yeah, I think that's part of like what it was, is he wanted to do some stuff that his kids could watch or whatever, right?
And like you said with Jim Carrey, even if he was there for the paycheck, like he did not phone in this performance.
Not even close.
This is like, he is goofy to the max. He definitely put his heart into what he was doing. And I think we'll see him again. I think he might sit out the fourth one, which I think would be fine. Give the character a break. I could see him showing up at least in a small role in a future movie. I don't think he's gone.
In a future Sonic movie, or just in a future movie?
In a future Sonic
movie.
Oh, okay. Well, because technically both of his versions kind of.
I see, but we don't know anything about this about the action because you don't see it happen. Just like we didn't see anything Shadow, and then we saw,
and then
I could see that something happened, or he like, oh no, it didn't kill me. It sucked me into some something.
It put me in some crazy universe, and I used a ring to get back or something.
But I could see us giving him a break for at least another movie. Have it be some new villains, something like that. Have him pop up in like 5 or 6.
Good point. I didn't think about that it was a giant chaos, energy.
Exactly. So we have no idea. I mean, Shadow obviously survived.
And we know it can get crazy. So
and they do that on purpose. If they don't show the dead body, that always leaves that door open.
There's a chance, yeah. So
I mean, that's pretty much happened with the second one, right? Where they said they killed him, but he obviously came back anyway.
All you saw was the giant robot like fall over and blow up or whatever. But look at that.
So the classic no body, no death kind of thing.
I mean, did you guys start the next season of Squid Game yet?
No, not yet. I saw that they put it up, and I was like,
but you'll see. Perfect example. We didn't see him die in the first season, so he's alive now. One of the guys.
Fair.
But David, to your point too, it's like with him playing both Robotnik and both Robotniks, it definitely he was able to do both performances and feel both Jim Carrey, but 2 separate characters at the same time, which was not a lot of people can actually do.
Yeah.
Which is 1000% correct. Like,
I mean, I love like Adam Sandler is one of my favorite actors and comedians. I love him, but Jack and Jill is an affront to humanity.
Oh my god, that was
Let's not forget also 8 Crazy Nights. That is. Woo.
So yeah,
I honestly like 8 Crazy Nights as a movie, but that was like one that came out when I was a kid, and I thought it was hilarious when I was a kid. So maybe that's again the kid glasses on of like, oh, that movie is fun. It's probably not as great as I remember it to be.
I think one of the best actors to ever do the like multiple role thing in one movie is probably Eddie Murphy. With that,
I was gonna say, please say Eddie Murphy, because
he's the whole family and everything. Like nailed it. That was great. Jim Carrey was on that same level with this, where I could believe it was another actor. I know it wasn't, but I was immersed enough that I didn't feel like I was just watching 2 Jim Carreys. It felt like two family members, whatever.
Another one that comes to mind of like playing multiple characters on the screen at the same time, all interacting with Michael Myers as Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, and Fat Bastard, all like
yes, it felt just like that. Where it was two different ones.
Because so I showed one of my girlfriends one time, like because she'd never seen it, and like we're watching the movie or whatever, and then like it takes her half of the movie to figure. She's like, "That's not the same guy, is it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." Like, what? You've been watching this thinking it's like different people the whole time?
And then in the third one where he's also gold member.
And he's gold. I was like, yeah. So Michael Myers goes on that list of like being able to play multiple people.
Absolutely. Mike Myers is another one that I love it. And even in that Netflix series, he did the Pentacna or whatever it was, where he was like 5 different guys. Like, he still nailed it. I mean, that wasn't the best show, but he nailed the acting aspects.
Oh, 1000%. So yeah, but that's he did a great job though. Like I didn't know that I needed 2 Jim Carreys as Dr. Robotnik's dancing in spandex suits until I got it, and I was like, okay, yeah.
And it makes no sense for the story of why they're doing it. They just decided we're gonna dance to it. They could have easily just walked over, it
was an excuse to shoot lasers and dance. Like that's really all it was. It was amazing. And like it's one of those things, like not a lot of people have ever heard the song that they were dancing to. So it was just like one of those ones that I was like, oh, and they danced to Galvanize. Nice.
And if Jim Carrey had just been doing it for the paycheck, he's like, yeah, I'll come back, just give me the money. He didn't have to do 2 roles. No, he easily could have said, hire somebody else for that role, or whatever, and it would have been fine. They still could have done the movie just the same with another actor portraying the grandpa.
Well, and that's what Gray was saying, is like he didn't phone it in. Like, because you're exactly right. He could have took the paycheck completely, you know what I mean, phoned it in, did whatever, gave a half-assed performance for both.
And it probably still would have been just as successful.
Probably, right? But
people still would have gone. It would have been fine. But he did it.
But he didn't. He came out here going hard and in the lasers and spandex. That was great.
It's funny. If he really stays retired now, though, that's going to be his last performance.
Yeah,
that's a good one to go out on, though. Like,
great. Yeah, great performance to go out on. But what I do want to say is, like, as we've said throughout like this entire thing, is like you can tell that they really like had not only fun but really cared about this material, and they just enjoyed this entire process, which you can feel throughout the entire movie. Because that's what I think honestly contributes to the overall like positive reception of audiences, both old and new, from like this entire fan base. Is they felt that this was a fun movie, even if it was corny and hokey. That's half the fun of this entire movie, is that they were enjoying themselves while they made the movie.
And I mean, I think this is where the DC Snyderverse really went wrong. You can't take yourself too seriously, especially when you're in something like this or like comics, whatever. There's a certain level that, you need to take it. And I think with a Sonic the Hedgehog game, making it into a movie, they hit that right combination of still being corny and cheesy and fun and being serious enough for the plot to keep going, to not be just ridiculous. But they still remember at the end of the day, this is a movie about a blue hedgehog that goes really, really fast.
That runs fast. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the tagline is basically got to go fast. So
gotta go fast. Absolutely. That's my
Dave,
catchphrase.
to your point, I think honestly, just them respecting the fact it's a kid's movie, but they respect the actual themes in the story well enough to deliver that emotional like payoff, but they let you enjoy the ride the entire time. Like it's a
perfect family movie.
Yeah,
it
100%.
is. Because I was gonna say, like, I'm watching this or whatever, and the bit in the beginning or whatever, and it, like, they of course take it and you tie it all together in the end and all that, and I was like, see, this is a fun movie and it's kind of ridiculous and you got all this kind of stuff, but I was like, but it still has a lot of heart.
And that's what saves it. You can overlook the corny stuff, like Jim Carrey dancing with himself,
right?
Because there's heart, and you can tell everybody's enjoying it. It's just good, silly fun. It doesn't have to be ultra violent. It doesn't have to be a bunch of cussing or sexual. Like, it can just be goofy for the sake of being goofy and have a good time.
And if I'm being honest, it's something that's missing these days. I feel like a lot of movies don't have heart.
Like, and that's why it's doing so well already, because it has that heart that you want to go see it and be a part of it.
Well, it's like a lot of kid movies today. Like the movies that we grew up on were very much the same thing, where they put in that actual effort and gave not only the kids something to enjoy, but let the parents also have a story they can relate to and feel like their kids should listen to as well. And it feels like you don't have to give kids dumb stories because they understand what they're being told.
Yeah, you don't have to spoon feed it to them.
You don't, and I don't think a lot of people understand that, right? They just go, oh, because they're kids, they're not going to understand anything,
right?
They're not going to do whatever.
There's too many kid movies that try to talk down to them.
Yeah, or
Right.
they're just like, here's stuff to keep your dopamine centers going for the next 90 minutes. Shut up. And it's like, well, that's not what they need.
Well, and like it's so like another like perfect example of that of like you do have like it's a cartoon animated kids movie or whatever, The Incredibles, the first Incredibles movie. I was 13.
All the Pixar movies
Yeah,
are fantastic.
amazing.
Right, like I was 13 when that one came out, but it's one of those like that movie had heart. Yes, it was cool because it had superheroes and all this kind of stuff, but realistically, at the end of the day, it was a story about
It was about a
family
family loving each other and depending on each other.
loving
And it's
and
that kind of
depending
story
on.
that just sticks with you, you know, like all these years later, you look back on it and you're like, you take yourself back emotionally and just mentally to that point. And you're like, I love this story. I love these characters. And like the overall theme is there and it sticks with you.
Yeah, but and that's the like I don't go back and I look at it and go, oh, that's a kids movie or whatever. Like I'm not.
Yeah, you
I
don't
I
dismiss it.
love The
You're not
Incredibles.
just like
it's- as an
whatever.
adult, even it's a great movie. You appreciate it even more as an adult because you're like, man, like I wish, you know what I mean? Like my family unit was like this to some degree where, you know, we all kind of depend on each other and can count on each other and all that kind of stuff. And it's like that would be nice to have, or I would like my family to emulate that, or, you know, some pieces of it. So
It just
yeah,
kind of
it's a-
reminds you like, oh, hey, maybe I need to rethink, you know, what I'm doing, get back on track kind of thing.
absolutely, yeah. It's
they're-
like
they're great.
I don't want to work for a soulless company denying insurance.
David, I don't know if
Yeah,
all
you're in.
Pixar movies have been good. There's one we've talked about on the channel that was bad.
I like to pretend that
There's been a
movie
couple
doesn't
good.
exist. Because it's the only one with the word good in it, and it was not.
It was bad. Just to bring it, tying in other things we've talked about. But okay, so the directors said they really had no backup plan if Jim Carrey didn't return. So this was going to be their story. David, who would you have put in had Jim Carrey stayed retired? Like, who do you think could have hopped in and played Robotnik?
Well, personally, if it was up to me, like writing wise, I would just have not had Robotnik be in it. I would have focused purely on the shadow aspect as the antagonist and kind of go with that and build up like an evil scientist, kind of like what the grandpa was, just not have him related to Robotnik at all and leave that storyline to the side, be like, that's in the past. But if I had to recast, maybe somebody like Will Ferrell.
Oh, he probably
I think he could do it. He's kind of got that Jim Carrey zany energy enough, and the like yelling unnecessarily. Like I could see it. Like
if he brings Mugatu energy, like
exactly. Yep.
Let's see. If you brought Mugatu energy and they kind of kept like the same story where it is, grandfather Robotnik, but they call him like, Professor Eggman just to kind of keep the differential. Because like it can still be the relative, but like make it a different last name and all that kind of stuff. To keep that separation, it's possible, but I don't think anybody would have been able to fill Jim Carrey's shoes.
No, that's why I would have said it's stupid to try to do it. There's some roles that you just let them go.
right.
Will Ferrell, though, I think he could have done it. Or Will Ferrell could have also just played the grandpa character if Jim Carrey didn't want to do them both. Like I would have believed that was his
brought him in
grandpa.
as the second guy.
Yeah, it's like the older. I would have totally bought that. Or because I think done in the makeup and stuff, he would have looked very video game-esque. Jack Black.
I could see that.
He could have been Robotnik from the beginning, and I would have bought it because he would have brought that energy to
Especially if they keep the original round Robotnik.
If they would have done the round Robotnik with the
Eggman
mustache from the very beginning,
yeah,
and it was Jack Black, and he would have given his all to it, I would have been like, I'm in. I got it.
Just based on the Minecraft trailers, he pretty much looks like that right now anyway.
Right. I 100% would have believed it. But a note on that, I think that movie's going to be so bad.
Oh, it's going to be dog water.
Like
I already looked like dog.
Dude, I'm sitting in the movie last night and I just see the trailer come on and it just, as a child, I yearned for the mines. And I'm like, I'm already checked out. I'm checked out.
Grayson's brain's like, ah!
Like, and that's going to be awful. Okay.
Yeah. If I had to, I'm kind of with Gray on this one. Like, I don't think that anybody can honestly replace Jim Carrey. Like, but if I'm doing it, it's one of those things like I'm gonna just lean into like the maybe like too ridiculousness of it, and I would like, and as much as like he's super popular and all that kind of stuff, like I would just put Ryan Reynolds in there and just have him just talk shit the whole time, and like that's where we went with that, like just
or would that be a great idea with Ryan Reynolds? You could even say that he was like Robotnik's son. Like comes out of somewhere that he found out that Sonic like killed his dad, so now that's his like motivation, and be like, all right, whatever. You know, like you could have done something with that to bring in somebody big.
Well,
And that's
look at
what,
the
yeah,
story,
if you wanted to
too.
bring in somebody big or whatever, like, and
Yeah.
that's what I mean. It's like something like that, but and then you just lean into the ridiculousness of it or whatever. It's just, I don't know.
I
these
think
cast are, like,
if
pushy
Jim
enough,
Carrey
you
would
know?
have said no, it would have been better just to scrap it and go with the Shadow plotline.
And just go straight up Shadow.
Yeah.
Realistically, that's probably the best choice. But yeah, for the most part, like I there's not a lot of people or a lot of things that I could think
Maybe
of.
build up a newer bad guy like Head of Gun or something. That
Well, I
was,
think that's what they were trying to
you
do
know.
with what's her name that played
Kristen-
Jessica Jones, was
Kristen
like
Ritter?
having
Yeah,
her be
what?
like the
I
center,
don't get
like
why she
figure.
was in it.
I think she was like
I
supposed to
thought
be
she
like,
was going to
yeah,
be
like,
bigger, and then
yeah.
she was. I guess in the sequel, maybe she'll be like a bigger part of things. But in this one, I was surprised that she was in such a small role.
Well, if you look at like the way the story is like structured, it definitely seems like they had her, like they had their backup villain of her being like the human villain outside of Shadow, just to kind of like give, you know, them something else to go against, like Guns trying to stop them from stopping Shadow,
Right, because
from, like,
Shadow was
losing
going to
the
become
whole
a good
Jess
guy.
energy.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
I think
'cause, like, I
they're
got that feel
prepping her
too,
to be the big bad for, like, you know, them to go up against on the human side to prevent Shadow from doing his whole thing.
I'm
But-
glad it didn't happen though, because no other character would have had any motivation to want to destroy the world.
Right.
True.
Like it had to be somebody just insane, because hers it'd be more like to control things. You know what I mean? Like they.
Oh, she wants to be the big boss. Like
Right.
So that was
But
the
not
vibe I was
destroy.
getting. And like I thought, honestly, I thought they were gonna pull the rug, man. I was one of those ones like they have like Dr. Robotnik in there and like he's kind of like crazy, but when she like shows up and she's like, "Oh, I planned for this," you know what I mean? I
Like
planned.
I have the card.
I have the card. I was fully 1000% expecting her to make the heel turn and then become the villain. Of
Especially
the story.
because again, she's such like a bigger name than a lot
Right.
of other. Like I was like, oh, so she's got to be something major, either a really good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah, or a good guy that turns into like that the sneaky bad guy.
So that's
yeah.
what makes me think that she's gonna have a bigger role in the next one.
Well, I
Like,
think for
she'll
the most part
probably
they were
be
trying
the
to
human
like,
bad guy.
yeah. Well, I think honestly, like they were trying to make her more of like the hurdle for Sonic and them to get over, where like she's trying to control the situation while Shadow's doing this. So like they're like, just let us do this, and she's like, no, you can't go that way because I don't trust you. Blah 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 blah.
The
blah
extra the roadblock.
And
if you
then
will.
like she goes, "You've earned my trust, Sonic. I will trust you to go destroy the other Shadow Sonic. Hedgehog."
Save us all.
Yeah, here's the card or what? Yeah, but like I said, I could have definitely seen it going that way too, though. Of you know, I mean, just being that like having some weird heel turn or whatever, and having her be the villain, trying to control, you know, all of the Shadow and everybody else or whatever, or something like that. But even I even think the whole like blow up the world and kill everybody thing was like a crazy plot to begin with. Like just like towards the end, like when you learn like that's what it is, it's like
Even Shadow's like, whoa, bro, what?
like wait, hold on, yeah, wait a
Well, I
minute.
mean,
including themselves, where he's like, "It's
Right,
gonna
but he
blow
goes,
us
like,
up too."
including ourselves. And I just the thing about it that like got me was like even that didn't make Shadow go, you know what, you're kind of crazy. He goes, nah, justice. It's right. And I was like, bro, what? This man said he's literally gonna kill everybody. Like what?
But it made Robotnik turn. He was like, "What?"
That is true. But yeah, it just that shit was crazy to me. I was like, no way that he just said, I'm gonna blow up everything, kill everybody, and Shadow was like, yeah, justice. It was one of those things. Like, I wanted to take a video or like a picture of him like standing at the window, like after he said that, and I just want to put a little Batman like on his face. Justice. I was like, whoa, all right, chill out, sir. Oh.
honestly, I gotta say that last like battle between both of them, just being Super Saiyan, one of the most fun experiences I've had in a theater in the longest time.
I was not expecting that.
No.
Because the fight scenes in the first one and I mean, like he really just fights robots in the first one, and then like the one with him and like Knuckles or whatever was like decent, but I 1000% was not expecting a Super Saiyan Sonic.
And Shadow, like,
down and they both were in their super forms. I was like,
super forms.
This is pretty sick.
Well, Chris, it was because they actually shot it or like animated it like a Dragon Ball episode.
100%, dude.
Like dude kicks them to like Egypt, boom, choom, choom, like all over the place.
Now they're on the moon.
And yeah, it's like dude throw them through rocks and shit, and just like, and you're like, oh yeah, like I was like, I'm getting my Dragon Ball fix in right now.
I'm just sitting there like, this is just an entire anime episode for an hour and a half. I'm here for it.
I'm all for it. Well, because it was one of those things I was like, at least in the games that I've played, I have not played like all of them and all that. There's never been like a fight scene like that between those two.
No,
my
there's
knowledge.
never a long. It's very short usually whenever they fight, and then they like, oh wait, we should work together.
Right.
I mean, like from playing like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, that this movie felt like it was pretty much they took 90% of that storyline and just made it into the movie. Because that honestly, in my
I'm glad
opinion,
they kept Shadow's backstory pretty much the same though.
yeah.
They kept that whole thing with the little girl and like
Well,
that was good.
but that's at least being like respectful, and that's being respectful to the source material, right?
And it shows a great contrast between the fact that Shadow had a family that embraced him, and then Shadow didn't. Like
So, you mean
the
Sonic,
differences.
yeah, Sonic had a family, and then, you know, Shadow
Yeah.
didn't really. But you're exactly right. Like that's what happens when you get taken and like, hey, we're gonna run tests on you and do, you know what I mean, like all that kind of stuff or whatever. Versus being
Instead
like,
of hey, you're free to be
found a
yourself.
good dude who's like, what's up, man? You want to hang out? You know what I mean? You want to be friends? You want to just love each other? You know? So, but yeah, I was not expecting that like Super Saiyan fight scene, and that was probably my favorite part of the movie, if I'm being honest. I know that question might have come up later, Keegan, but I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, this movie's badass. Like this is my favorite part of the movie right now.
So, and I also got to say, I feel like the Sonic movies have nailed it. Like they are on par with the Marvel movies of giving you great mid-credit, after-credit scenes to hype you up for the next
100%.
ones. They have done such a good job. That's such a good way to do it. Like showing new characters and stuff and just being like, see you next time. Like, oh.
Dude, when they showed Metal Sonic, I was geeking. Oh my god, dude.
And then when Amy came
And
out,
then Amy
after
shows
that,
up, and
I
I
was
was
like,
I'm like, as soon as I saw the hammer, I'm like, no, there's no way.
I thought it was just gonna be Metal Sonic,
Metal Sonic.
and then her, and it was like, because I thought when that one got destroyed, I thought maybe it was Shadow, like that was gonna, oh, he's there. But then when it was her, I was not expecting it.
Not
Well,
at
because
all.
it was one of those things. Like I caught a glimpse, and I was like, did he just throw a superpowered drum at this robot? Like, well, because like you can't tell what it is, right? Like you see it, and it shows like a little bit of it, but it looked like something.
You're mainly just seeing like the robot blow up, yeah.
Yeah, I just like the robot blow up and like maybe a little bit, and I was like, that didn't look like, because I'm looking, I was like, that didn't look like Shadow, like in a ball, like rolled up or whatever. And I was like, what the hell was that? And then yeah, of course, you know what I mean, like the hood, and I was like, oh no way. I was like, it's Amy. But it's funny because like I went and saw it with Aaron, right? So I'm fresh off this movie. I literally watched it 2 hours ago.
Oh,
so
nice.
it was one of those things like me and Aaron were watching it, and we were like towards the end because like, you know, the credits are rolling and all that, and that's what we were talking about. Is like, man, like these guys like the fans, right? It's like they like the fans, and you do all this stuff for them, right? And I'm not saying that your movies have to have like fan service or anything like that, but it's like if you give the fans what they want, you are gonna make money,
And they're gonna keep coming back.
and you're gonna keep coming back. And it was just literally exactly that. And like not literally 10 seconds after like saying that or having this like conversation, Metal Sonic shows up, and I'm like, like case in point, like exactly. And then I saw Amy, and I was like, dude, oh yeah, they're gonna make another one, and they're gonna make so much more money. Like that's giving the fans what they want.
And you stayed for the last scene, right?
Yeah.
Dude.
Okay.
Oh.
It was a good way to confirm that he's still there.
But no, I mean, honestly, Nolan, to your point, this is the type of fan service where it's not distracting from the story. It just makes the story more rich because it not only gives the fans what they want, it's also the lore of the universe. It doesn't distract from the story. It is the story.
And it's
You know
such a
what I mean?
good tease for the next installment.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just the story itself is not, it's not fan servicey, but it is because it is the source material that we came here to see. So it gave us it was chef's kiss fantastic.
Well, and the thing is like so I'm glad that we're making like steps in the right direction, right? There's a lot of things that have been cleaned up and like started to go, you know, like be like, oh, okay, maybe we should respect the source material and like its origins and things and like where it comes from. But like we've had this long stretch of people not doing that, right? And it's one of those things like I was like, at some point I don't understand like how you guys can see this Sonic movie and they go, oh man, the fans did not like that. Let's fix it. Let's do, you know what I mean? Like, let's make it proper and right in all regards or whatever. And they did that. And the fans go, oh, hell yeah. And they made like a whole bunch of money. And it's one of those things that's like, how can you guys look at that and go, no, we're going to stay on the course of just doing our own thing, doing whatever. And it's like, how do you see them like making money and like kind of responding to like that instead of being like, no, the fans are the ones who are wrong. You guys are bad. You're awful.
You guys are wrong. Our movie's great.
You guys are wrong. Our movie's great. Well, this movie wasn't
The
made for you.
Alkali, really good project.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie wasn't made for you. Yeah, we clearly know.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Yeah, we clearly understood that part. But you know what I mean? It's just like, so you see what happens when the movie is made for you and the movie is made for the fans? You make money. And I'm pretty sure, like last time I checked, the point of a business is to make money.
Like, why would you even try
know.
adapting something that already exists if you weren't planning on appealing to the people who already liked that property?
I don't know.
Makes no sense.
Because I have this conversation with lots of people, right? Because some people always like to be like, oh, you just hate everything. And I'm like, what? No, like that's the problem, I think, is because I do love this kind of stuff that it makes me sound like I hate.
And that's why it hurts so much when it sucks.
Yeah,
because you do love it.
Because I hate the stuff that this is, because it's not the stuff that I love. Like, that's why I sound like a hater. Like, what do you mean?
Honestly, I've had those conversations too, and like what I like to say is like, just imagine you go to a restaurant and it's like your most favorite one. They make what you like. It's always good, top notch, whatever. Undergoes new management. They change the entire menu, and then you go in there and you're like, "Where is this?" And like, oh, well, we didn't like that, and we know
it
that,
wasn't.
You know,
it wasn't made for you.
Yeah, it wasn't made for you. We're doing this now. Well, you're using the same name, and you're saying that you have the same products, but none of what we wanted is actually in here. You just have like the names of some of the stuff that we liked in here. Well, you see, we're just going in a different direction. So I'm just going to go somewhere else. No, we want you to give us your money too, but it's not going to be what you like, and we're not going to try to make it better. We're just
Still
gonna
give us your money, but we don't
give
care what you actually want.
Yeah,
but you don't know what you want, and you're just going to give us your money anyway because we're the only one here. And it's like, well, I'm going to find somewhere else to go.
Yeah. Well, and then they get upset when they're like, wait, what? Why? Why are you leaving? Why didn't you want to give us your money?
We hit you in the face. Why don't you like it? Pay us more to punch you in the face. Come on.
It just, yeah, right. It's like, you guys are killing me. I came for the meatballs, and you said you had meatballs, and you're giving me vegan meatballs. That's not meatballs.
This is cauliflower.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. What?
This is impossible meat, and I can't do this.
You guys lied to me. That's what happened. No wonder I'm unhappy. Yeah, and then it's, you're the one who's wrong though.
No, the problem's with you because you should be liking vegan meatballs because it's the right ththing to do.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. It's like, whose business degree are you guys using? Because it's not working. It's awful.
Did you see where the writers were talking about their Thanos was Big the Cat?
Was what?
That's really funny.
That dude. If they could actually make that, they could. With how these movies have played out, they could pull that off. Because if they can just get Big the Cat to be just a doofus on screen, then he's just a mastermind pulling just out of this world schemes behind the scenes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I saw that today. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to see. And you know what? The more we see of the different characters, and like we said, slowly, and I think they've been doing it slowly. I think it'll work. Is there any like small little Easter eggs in here, Grayson, that you were like, oh, I really like that? Just like,
honestly, just with that super, Saiyan fight at the end when they had the Adventure 2 battle, just like main menu theme going on in the background as they're like starting to team up and fight against the robots and everything. It made me feel like a kid playing the video games again for the first time. It was it was probably my favorite part of that entire movie, was just all that going on. Because the guy had the gotta go fast and then follow me. That was definitely on the nose and definitely hit me in the nostalgia a little bit.
Plus, that whole scene when they first see Shadow was very much like Escape from the City.
Mm-hmm.
When they're running through with all the cars everywhere and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another scene similar to that with like the Metal Sonics showing up, and since there's so many of them. I'm curious how they're going to say like where they're from. Like, did Gunn create them in this next one? Like, where are they going to say the Metal Sonics came from?
Well, I mean, it also gets me hyped for, I forget what the name of the like the water monster is from, like Chaos, right? I'm kind of hyped, and I kind of hope they bring him in for number 4, or at least make him another 2B big bad, because that would be sick.
I'm curious if like Rogue the Bat and the Crocodile guy and all that, are they going to come into the next one, or if that'll be left for like number 5, or there's so many ways they can go with all this.
Mhm.
And we
I
still don't
feel-
even have Silver the Hedgehog.
I'm kind of curious and excited to see like what happens with what do they call him? Goat Milk Man or Goat Milk Guy? When he shows up or whatever. Like I'm kind of curious to see like where his arc goes, right? After kind of like watching, him like blow up or whatever. And so it's like, do you think he's gonna come back like as a villain or something like that? Like
What I would love to see, and I don't know if they'll do it because they're trying to keep a lot of the human element, which I get, but I would love us to have a movie that's a little more set on like another world, like one of the famous worlds from one of the games, because we've now done Earth 3 times. I think they could justify now having an issue on one of the other like Sonic worlds, because now there's plenty of rings, people can get back and forth, like that something's happened over there, even if it's like Sonic's parents, like the humans, got kidnapped and taken to one of these worlds, and they have to fight through this like unique environment that it's not so much human based. Like maybe Amy's there and it's like, I need you to come help me in my world, something like that. One of these other famous zones that we've seen.
With how much we talked about Popclaw in this movie, I think they're going to try to bring her back in one of these next movies, because we didn't really see her death on screen. It was just a bunch of echidnas swarming her.
Yeah,
I think that Amy's probably, like, to your point, I think Amy might be like the messenger to bring him back if they go that route, and then they have to
be like, hey, they're holding her hostage, or something like that.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And then Knuckles is going to have to pick between his old tribe and his new tribe.
Create strife there, like, hey, oh man, my friends are my people, kind of situation.
Be like, Knuckles, you're our friend, you're with us, but his old tribe is now like, no, you're our warrior. I could definitely see that being one of the secondary like moral dilemma kind of things, and more about the family you choose versus who you're born with, and it writes itself.
And then what I was gonna say, I think the biggest problem I see with that is like, if we went to like a different world or whatever, I feel like it would have to be a lot of like CGI. So it might be like a budgetary thing. You know what I mean? Like
depending on what world it is, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So and to some degree, right? Like I think that might be part of it or something, right? Like they like to consider there's a lot of moving parts when making a movie or whatever, right? So I think that might possibly be why, because they're already using a huge budget on animating Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Shadow.
Well, it also could be like, because there was a lot of ones in the original games where it was like an underwater factory or stuff like that. I think they could definitely find some like filmed in the real world, but it's representing, it's just similar, that I think they wouldn't have to do total CGI like we've seen in the ones that look like this one behind me. Like, I think we could see some that are like obviously filmed here, but it's representing like whatever planet and not being like super outlandish from Earth. It's very similar, but because it looks like the echidnas and stuff may come from somewhere similar to Earth.
It looks like because I mean, like realistically, it looks like heavy,
like a jungle type thing. Yeah. I feel like we could definitely get some filming, I think, in just some kind of exotic locale that we could easily say it's whatever planet and just add a couple CGI things. And I think it'd be enough to buy it.
But for the most part, we're in the jungle.
Right. I think it would just be interesting to see, because I don't know if they're going to keep up. Like, I would give Gunn also kind of like Robotnik, give it a rest for a movie. And then they go like deal with all this, and maybe when they come back, something's happened where Gunn has become a bigger threat now, or something that's
maybe
dealt
Kristen
with in the
Ritter
next movie.
like overthrows everybody and becomes the bad guy.
Exactly. And because Sonic wasn't there, none of them were dealing with that.
To step up, to
exactly.
step in or step up or whatever.
I could see like things happening that they, basically they left, and when they come back, things are different now, and they're having to now deal with the fallout of all of that.
David's out
Do you
here
think it's possible?
Do
you think it's possible they made the Sonics at the end?
Who, Gunn?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think they made, because they keep getting bested by him. That it's the same story as why they made Mecha Godzilla in the recent ones.
Well, I mean, they're also pulling from Sonic lore with the that's why Robotnik made Metal Sonic in the games to begin with too, is because he wanted to beat Sonic to the best of his ability. But
because they kind of were trying to do that with Shadow. That's why they were testing him and stuff. It could be that all of the data they got from Shadow, they're now using for Metal Sonic.
Oh, they use for Metal Sonic.
I think that's where they're going with it.
Yeah, because they're going to say now that this whole thing happened, they realize not only how big of a threat they can be, but they're like, oh yeah, we had this guy locked up. What are we doing with all the data that we got from that? Fuck it.
Well, I think too,
Let's
like
try,
I think honestly too, with like what they're building up to, like each movie's built up on itself, and it just keeps kind of like building more and more into the world, which a good series should do. I think budgetary restrictions aside, I think the next movie is definitely going to be them delving into their, the Sonic world a lot more. You can kind of feel that's where they're wanting to go with it, to explore some of these characters a little bit more.
Which I think they should.
Cool.
Yeah, but I think to that point, it's going to be, I 100% agree. I think there's a lot more to explore and kind of build off of more. But I think budgetary wise, this is going to be much more of a computer, like Pixar-esque type movie, where it's just going to be computer animated the entire time, which I'm all for it. I think it's going to be sick.
As long as they do it well, it'll be good.
If they animate it like the fight scene, 1000%. I'm
absolutely
in. Count it.
But I think what would be a cool idea to do is if they go there for a little bit to kind of like, they rescue Popclaw, they try to like, take care of, that world. They come back to the real world, but then guns like over a mass, like, the Metal Sonics, and then they're prepared for the return of the Hedgehogs, so to speak. They then have to like restore balance between, the over controlling gun, like they do in a lot of the games, and, everything else, and them just trying to live their life. And then there might be like that, esoteric balance of, do I go where I belong or do I stay where, I love to be and where I am loved
with my people and all that kind of stuff.
And then there could definitely be one where something like Rogue the Bat steals the Chaos Emerald and they have to get it back. And in the process of that, it splits up into all its different forms and they got to travel through different worlds to find each different crystal to get them together. Like there's so many places you could easily go with it.
Don't do that to me, David. Don't give me hope.
Like lots of material to work with. And like, that's like one of those things too, that like drives me crazy about some of these movies is they do that when you have so much like lore and so much material to work with, but it's like you feel like you have to make up whatever it is to like, shoehorn whatever in there. And it's like, dude, David literally just gave you the blueprint, you know what I mean, for like 2 more movies.
You've had decades of writing, just use that, man.
Yeah, and it's like that's and the thing, he didn't make up one thing. It literally was just all stuff that from the game that, that we know, or just like little ideas and working within like that. And I was like, it's not that difficult, realistically.
Yeah, they basically gave him the puzzle pieces and were like, here, make something.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially when they give you the whole puzzle. Now I get it when they only give you a couple pieces or whatever, and it's like, hey, you got to make some stuff to kind of fit. Sure, 1000%, I get it. But it's like, man, when you have like a hugely established,
I mean, lore, Sonic's got animated shows, it's got comics, it's got the games. There's comics,
games, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, and I think that's what drives me more crazy is when you have stuff like that, when there's such a vast amount of games, books,
and you're like, no,
whatever, and then you're just like, nah, you know what I mean? It's fine. I got it. Don't worry about it. And I'm like,
that stuff's for nerds.
And you're like, dude, you should not be writing this movie. You should not be a writer on this movie. If that is your response, it's for nerds. I don't like that. Why are you here?
I don't talk to nerds or do what they do, so we're gonna reject that right away.
And it's like, that's my question. It's like, what? Why are you here? How did you get this job if you didn't want to be here? Like, you didn't like this stuff to begin with.
I know you know the studio head, but can you please just keep pushing? Just turn it down.
Right. Just crazy to me.
I just hope we get a crossover between Sonic and Free Willy, as in my background. I really do hope, like Grayson said, we see Chaos. Comes from the same game and everything, but just a character that always stuck with me. So I think that'd be cool. I don't think the next one will have it. And I think going to one of the planets would make sense. I mean, listen to what the Transformers fans have been saying. Where they're
where
just go back to the planet.
Been on Earth. Yeah,
go back to Cybertron and completely ignore the Earth.
It's what though? I think it's because
now Transformers is going to be Transformers G.I. Joe, so they're going to have to stay on Earth.
That's what you.
That's the next movie because that's what the Beast one set up at the end. Was the main human guy got recruited by G.I. Joe.
With Dwayne The Rock Johnson. See, we brought it full circle. We started with Dwayne, we're back with Dwayne.
So what I think would make a lot of sense, because it would tie the stories together with responsibilities and message, do the whole thing with Knuckles having to choose between his, tribal family, his found family, all that, right? He does that. But just like Grayson said, like Popclaw is alive. And you find out, they save her by the end. And then Sonic can choose to go live back with Popclaw or stay and defend Earth. So he's going to have the same kind of moral dilemma, and it's going to be about growing up and letting go and having responsibilities as you mature and being able to love people that aren't necessarily there with you kind of thing. So both of them together will have their different kind of same shades of the same moral problem.
Same dilemma. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. It's like that right there also gives the movie like a good theme and some heart. You know?
Right. And it's a great message for kids, especially because now when the first one came out, the kids that have been watching it since they were like 6, 7, or 8, they are growing up being older. So it's kind of a more mature message for moving up, and they're kind of growing with them. I think it would make the most sense.
Yeah. Good call.
Hopefully this brings about actual movies doing that again. Those were the days.
I mean, you've got to hope that seeing movies like that be successful will eventually be the wake-up call to other studios to be like, hey, people like it when we actually have good stories. Like, honestly, I mean, I have tons of favorite actors that I love and everything, but if you're giving me a good story, I don't have to know anybody in that damn movie. Give me some new fresh faces, that's fine. If the story's good, that's what I'm there for.
So I literally said that the other day because we were talking about how shit-tastic Borderlands was.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, dude.
I'm surprised Keegan didn't make us do that one.
It's coming, David.
He said, I don't want to torture you guys because that movie is literal torture. Like the casting was all wrong. The story was all wrong. Like everything about that movie.
And it's such a fun world that you easily could have done the Fallout way of taking it. Just it's in this world, but it's new characters. And that would have been perfect.
And you could have done a show. And that's what I mean, right? Like that falls into that category of like, all they're doing is using the world of Pandora, and they've given you different sets of characters every single game.
And the games have focused on such small areas of it that there's so much of the planet and the whole thing to explore.
And that's exactly it. It's like you could have come up with. So me personally, like I said, you make a good Borderlands story, you fill it with the humor and the fun that is Borderlands.
Yeah, you just want the spirit of it. You don't need the same people and everything to make it successful.
Right. And the spirit of it and all that. And I was like, and to keep the cost down, you don't hire big name actors. You hire, you know what I mean? Like, and even then, it's one of those things. If you did want to use the characters from the game, you hire a guy who looks like Roland.
Honestly,
Kevin Hart.
the biggest name I would have gotten if I cast Borderlands, because it would have been all unknowns, and then I would have hired the guy who did Trap Clap in the games.
Oh yeah,
you keep the voice the same. That's it.
Yeah, and realistically, that's what you do. You spend the money on getting
on that things like that, and he would have been so. I mean, come on. Do you think Jack Black's salary was the same as what that? No, come on.
No, absolutely not. But that's what I'm saying. I was like, because I think the what is it, Krieg, like the dude that played the Psycho.
Yeah,
decent casting, great. You know what I mean? Like dude's huge, whatever, has the body for it. Absolutely, 1000%.
Well, and then Will Arnett did a pretty good job, imitating the original voice of Krieg too. So,
I love Kate Blanchett, not Lilith. Like,
Lilith is supposed to be young and hot. I don't know what.
Look, if I'm being honest,
Kate Blanchett's still not bad looking, but she's way too old to be in that role.
She is old and hot. We want
now,
if they
were
she's a little bit younger.
If this would have been meant to be like way later on, though, like it is an older Lilith, and she's had those adventures kind of thing that we've seen in the games. Okay, that I could have bought. Yeah. Not that this was supposed to be like prime Lilith.
Yeah, call it back to like having her there as like the staple character, but still introduce new characters. Like have her there to be the Vault, raider, but not make her the main character. Give that to new people because that world is so massive as it is.
Well, that's literally what they did in the second one. Is like because Borderlands 2, by the way, is my favorite one. 2 is still my favorite. But that's exactly it. Is they go, oh, they make mentions of Lilith, and then you go and find her and like help her out.
It should have been like that was the lore. Yeah. That's the lore of the world. Like have Claptrap have the voice that all of them always have. Have some references maybe to like Handsome Jack as just like an overarching figure maybe. And then maybe they run into somebody like Moxie or something when they go to like the bar, but that's it.
Right.
You didn't need to have the.
And that's what I mean. Like, and because like, it's one of those things like you can have those characters, like the side characters that don't really matter. And it's one of those things that like,
it's just a nice callback.
It's just a nice callback. Exactly. And I mean, like realistically, it's one of those things that, there are some damn good Moxie cosplayers out there. You could probably just get Jessica Nagiri to do it. Just have her stand there.
You could have done this entire cast with cosplayers, and it would have been 100 times better.
Oh my god, 1000%.
Because so many of them, they look like they stepped right out of the game. Whereas the movie, they were like, well, I know Roland's like 6 something, but where's Kevin Hart?
Yeah,
Let's
we're
be honest.
like, me and Kevin Hart are the same height, right? Like we're 5'4", 5'5", like tops.
The
Like,
first
yeah,
and foremost mistake was making that a live action movie with the stylized just art of Borderlands in and of itself. It should have been CG, if anything, if they were going to make that a movie.
And if
it
not, you
should
know
not
what?
have been live action.
They even would have done better if, like we were talking about Lord of the Rings, they could have done a Borderlands anime style, and it probably would have worked.
1,000,000%.
Mhm.
Oh, 1000%. Yeah. The only thing is you definitely have to keep it animated, the cell shaded animation like that, like the way
And
the
it would've-
style
yeah.
of the game is.
Yeah.
And it would have looked awesome.
Yeah,
It would have been
but it just-
amazing.
to me, it was just one of those things that I was like, what are we doing? Like, you keep the cost down by hiring no names, because realistically, like, you guys were going hella off book here, so it doesn't even matter what the story is. Like, if you're not gonna make money because you're paying all these people to like come in and do a terrible story. It's like,
And nobody was going to go see Borderlands that didn't know anything about it and just like, oh, Kevin Hart, let's go.
The
Yeah,
second
that
I saw
wasn't
Kevin
happening.
Hart on an ad, I was like, nope, this is going to be dog water. There's no way.
well, that's what I was like, and that's what I mean is like that literally checked everybody out when they were like, Kevin is rolling, and I was like, I was like, oh, this is gonna be awful to begin with because they decided to make Kevin Hart.
See, and again, you
Roland.
could have gone, if you were insistent on having him, make him a new character. He's like Roland's son that's trying to live up to his dad, but can't because he's a little guy. You
Yeah,
know,
and the
something
crazy-
just stupid.
And the crazy thing about it is like they used like an amalgamation of characters.
Yeah.
Because Lilith and Roland are from the first game. You know what I mean? And then you
But
have
they wanted to combine it with characters from 2, and they wanted
Yeah,
that
and
Tiny
then-
Tina.
and then Krieg and Tina and all them are from the set. And it's like, if you guys are gonna just do a mashup, like what? Why don't you just make your own shit? Like go with other characters to begin with.
And Tina's actually pretty cool in the games, but she was so annoying in the movie.
Yeah, I heard. It was one of those things. I heard that they were like, they think. Oh, what did they say? That the person playing Tiny Tina is like acting like what they think a crazy person acts like.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that seems about right. Like,
You know what? I mean, a little different than straight up video game, but I think a great movie recently that took a world and the spirit of it was the Dungeons and Dragons movie. They didn't feel the need to take. They didn't take any character that's already established that you see a lot in them, or whatever. Totally new characters, but had the vibe and the locations and did their own thing.
well, and
I think
that
they
was,
did amazing with that.
and that's what made that movie absolutely awesome, right? Is like one, they had like pretty good, actors and stuff like
They
that.
had a good
like,
story.
acted.
They had act, but it still wasn't like huge names. Like Chris
No.
Pines, I guess he's okay. Like
He's
but
pretty up there.
But he's not like, oh my god, And he was the biggest name. Everybody
Right.
else was like mid tier at best.
Yeah, I was like Michelle Rodriguez. She's been around for a long time, so she's a.
It was a lot of those faces. Like, oh, I saw him in that guy.
But I will say the dude that played the mage or whatever. I've seen him in a couple things.
The guy was in Detective Pikachu.
The Pikachu guy, right? And then of course, the dude that played the paladin his big break was Bridgerton or whatever.
Right. It was stuff that it wasn't
making-
like nobody was making 20 million salary off.
Oh,
that.
absolutely not. Well, no, I would say wasn't
Not even what's his name. I mean, even
the
Bradley
bad guy.
Cooper was in it.
what's his face?
Oh
Was
god,
it the
yeah.
bad guy?
What's his name? Keegan, the Prime Minister in Love Actually. I can't believe I don't remember. Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant. Yeah.
Hugh
And he
Grant's
was
pretty
such a
big
good.
name.
And he was
You know what
such
I
a
mean?
good bad guy.
Oh, 1000%.
He was
But that's
great
what I
in
mean.
that
Like
role.
you had a decent couple names here and there, but
But they didn't expect you to go see it because of that. Nobody marketed this movie as you love Hugh Grant, you have to see this.
yeah, come see Chris Pine. That's not what happened. But it was what made me love that movie was the fact that they had all of these like Easter eggs and callbacks to people that actually play Dungeons and Dragons.
But you didn't
understand-
need to know it to enjoy the movie.
Correct. Yeah, and it's just like, oh, gelatinous cube. That's funny. You know what I mean?
It was just silly things. You're like, oh, okay.
You're
Or
like,
you
oh,
can
that's
tell,
good.
like, oh, I guess that was a critical fail. Like,
Right. Or that the some of the characters that they showed, like when they were running through the maze, were all the originals from the original cartoon.
that was so, yeah. And I really love the fact that, like, in the village, when you just see them living, I love that it was practical effect, like,
Oh, yeah.
creatures. Even the Turbaxi and stuff, like, it was actually like cat people. It wasn't CGI.
It wasn't CGI. And I, like I said, I'm a huge proponent of practical effects any day of the week because they're always
Absolutely.
going to look 10 times better than CGI or whatever in the future, now in the future, whenever. It's just practical effects always is the way to go. But yeah, that movie looked, I honestly, like, all of it looked fantastic for for most of it.
I mean, I know they didn't make as much as they wanted to, but I really hope they're going to do at least another one.
I mean, I think
They want to.
I think they want to. Yeah, as I was gonna say, like I think they want to because like realistically, I think they did definitely good enough to get a second movie that people would actually like go watch it. But yeah,
The characters were endearing enough. The world is still massive with tons of potential, and there's still hanging plot threads that they could easily go off of.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those things like I love the Easter eggs that they threw in there. Like I was like a perfect amount, right? Of like, oh man, I know that spell, or I know what that was that they saw, or you know what I mean? Just like, oh okay, I know that reference. It was good.
And honestly, I wish more studios would actually do, mid-budget tier projects like that, just to kind of give you like that little bit of just something where you can kind of get yourself invested, and just hopefully it kind of becomes, a future property without just being overly just stuffed with big name actors that really don't do anything besides just be themselves on screen. Chris Pratt-esque, but
Rock.
but it's just I really kind of I hope that just stuff like Sonic and a bunch of these other just tinier projects like stuff that we talked about before from like A24 or just any of these mid-tier budgets that actually turn a profit, start kind of get Hollywood readjusting their approach to making movies, because there's no need to make multi-billion, like million/billion-dollar projects all the time, and there's just nothing to it. I'd rather have a better product for a cheaper price than have to worry about just spending money and just having nothing fed to me but crap. I'd rather have the homemade meal over McDonald's all the time, because you just get tired of it, because it just doesn't do anything but leave a bad taste in your mouth after the second or third time that you've had
It's like empty calories.
Exactly.
Yeah, guys.
I mean,
So,
you've got problems when the fan fiction you find online for free from teenagers at home is a better story than your movie.
Yeah. I was like, it's even funny that you say that, David, because like I feel like some of these movies these days are just poorly written fan fiction,
and the worst of the fan fiction.
It's just
like
the worst.
I mean, Nolan, as you brought out earlier, it's like a bunch of these people that don't even want to work on it, or for some reason the studio's like, so there's years of reference material you can use. You're not doing that. You're making stuff up that has no reason to be in this series in any way, shape, or form. So go ahead and just go do that. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. We just what is this? This, like, they don't want to be here. They hate being here, and they're literally making up fan fiction because they don't know what they're writing, because all they know is just the cliff notes. There's nothing else they know about any of these, like, properties, franchises, or it's just stuff that has these gigantic fan bases. They're just making up crap as they go along, and then all the fans are like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Like, you can tell when the people making the stuff don't care about the product. Like, they don't care about the source material.
That was season 1 of Halo. I was like, this is what am I watching? Because it felt like terribly written sci-fi fan fiction.
See, and that's what makes me so glad that people like Nintendo, after the failure of the Super Mario, the original one, that they were like, we got to step back and make sure whoever does this again knows what they're doing this time.
Does it right? Yeah.
And I know that they were like very involved with the movie.
Well, and I appreciate the fact that like sometimes they do take some steps to make things better, or to make it to kind of like make up for their mistakes, right? A la like Netflix when they made Cowboy Bebop and it was awful, and then they go, oh, okay, maybe we kind of messed up, and then they do One Piece, and One Piece was actually good.
One Piece was fantastic.
You know what I mean? Like they're like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's learn from our mistakes here. Let's bring in people that, one, don't hate the fans, and two, like, respect the source material here. And that show.
Hey, to be fair, Cowboy Bebop was a huge step up from the Death Note movie they made.
Oh, yeah,
that's a bold claim, David. That's a bold claim.
So they do keep going up. It may not have been a huge step up, but that Death Note movie, oh my god.
Yeah, but I also to that I counter with, did you ever watch the Winx show that they made?
You know what? I actually didn't mind that
or
too
the Avatar?
much. It was super cheesy.
The Avatar?
The Avatar: The Last Airbender remake on Netflix.
I didn't watch the remake. I just watched the movie, and the movie was terrible.
So
the movie
wasn't Netflix. Yeah, they did a live action series, but apparently that did really well. They got renewed for like 2 or 3 more seasons already.
So the thing that upsets me about the Netflix one, because it looks fantastic. Like that's one where they nailed the casting and everyone really acts and like is great, right? But it was one of those things that after, because like I love Avatar, like I've watched it many times, but you're supposed to do it by books, and that was the thing. Like going through that, like they just like they took like one story from like the like Water book 2, and like
they picked and chose a lot.
And they picked and chose.
I'm
and
way
like,
more excited for the new animated movies they're gonna make that have like the original cast coming back and everything. That's gonna be like the time periods in between Aang and what's her name? That was the second Avatar.
Katara, or not
yeah. It's gonna be more stories of them like adult-ish and stuff, like things that happened in that time period. They're going back to they're working on that right now.
That'll be actually pretty cool.
And that's all the original writers, all the original voice cast, and everything's all coming for those. I think those are gonna be fire.
Because like what is it like? You have Avatar and then like Legend of Korra or whatever. Like you have 12-year-old Aang and then like 89-year-old, like you know what I mean? It's like
whoa,
there's a lot of space here,
right? And now they're going to go back and tell those stories. And I think people would love to see like 25-year-old Aang, like what adventures did they get up to? Like that's going to be awesome.
Like it's one of those things. Like when you say that, like it kind of gives me the vibes of like I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but it was one of my like favorite shows until they ruined it, of course. But Young Justice, like DC's Young Justice was awesome. Because it was like they started out, like 15, 16, like teenager kids or whatever in the first season, and in the second season they kind of grew to be about 18 to 20-ish in that range, and they kind of so they're still kids, but they're not like kids, and they're like still going like through grown up stuff. And then the third season they just ruined it.
I feel like Teen Titans was on that path too until they got killed. Like that, that show was so good until it became Teen Titans Go.
The writing in Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, was amazing.
It's some of the best superhero, right? Like it was so
by
good.
far. And that's one of those things that absolutely drives me crazy. Like you bring up a good point is I don't understand how DC's like animated writing is killer, out of this world, amazing, right? Why don't they ever grab any of those people for the real movies?
That they're like, hey,
they just don't translate to movies.
And I was like, what? Yeah, like, what do you mean? I was like, what is it? Batman Gaslight or whatever? Like Lamplight or
Gotham
something?
by Gaslight.
Yeah. Fantastic story.
I will say, though, I do think
Batman, cool.
I finally got around to watching it. Penguin was amazing.
I was like,
good.
It was very good. I didn't expect it. Well, I just watched it because like whatever. I guess I'll finally watch it. I liked Penguin, I think, more than I liked the Batman movie.
Oh.
Well, I mean, true, Penguin is fantastic, but to Nolan's point as well, it's like, why don't, like, especially for the Batman movies or anything going forward,
give them a shot. You can't do any worse than you've been doing.
Like Bruce Timm and Paul Dini were like some of the best writers for both Batman and Superman on those animated shows. Like they were fantastic.
Like you could tell
I do not know why they're not consulted enough.
Yeah, like they understood. They get Superman, they get Batman.
Well, it's like they had such a deep cultural impact. Like the villain origin stories that we know and love today, a lot of that originated from the Batman animated series, where they created most of those like retellings of those stories.
That's by far one of the best animated series I think of all time.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's Harley Quinn didn't even exist until that series. And now look at how big she is, like
and now she's everywhere. I feel like if I'm being honest, they need to give Harley Quinn and the Joker they gotta put a rest on it. You know what I mean?
Let's put that.
We have so many great Batman villains that they just don't touch.
Dude, if they really are gonna because the new one's gonna be in the winter, if it really is gonna be Mr. Freeze,
I know for a fact they're making a Clayface movie.
I was gonna say, can I get Clayface, please? Because I think he's one of the cooler, more interesting villains.
Plus, it's Alan Tudyk. It's gonna be.
Did you guys hear about the theory with how like the Batman movie got pushed out? Like the theory is that they're waiting to see how Superman does because James
kind of craft how it goes from that.
They want to see it, because they want to rope in Matt Reeves' Batman into the shared universe, and they want to just see how that goes. And then because Matt Reeves is still really standoffish, but like they pushed it out like another 6 months
because he wanted it to be like an Elseworlds thing, right? Like just as Batman.
But I think if depending on how like they do it, if it is like two James Gunn's I'm not making it if it's not a top quality thing, I think it could actually work. Depending on how this Superman gets received and how this all goes on, which I think it's going to be great. But
I think the trailer killed it. It looks like it's back to a Superman that actually has like some hope.
It's pretty funny to see all the Snyder fanboys kind of crying about how it's actually Superman and not Edgelord McGee with the S on his chest.
So it's funny because if I'm being honest, I don't like Superman at all. and it's one of those ones that like I feel like they need to give him a rest too. Like realistically, the whole DC has just been a failure after failure, but it's like because I think it's because they don't give him any time to rest. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
they're constantly, just like you mentioned with the Joker. He's in every single Batman. We're like, I love him. I love Batman and Joker. They're great nemesis
great
together.
character, amazing,
But
but
give
like
him a break. Bring in
give him a break.
just anybody. Just
Perfect
Yeah,
example,
let him
right?
rest.
Court
Perfect
of
example.
Owls.
The last time they had the Penguin,
Dude, I would
was
love a Court of Owls movie. We've
1989.
talked about that. I need a Court of Owls movie. That could be phenomenal, especially with the way they've set up these Batmans.
A Court of Owls TV show, I think, would do it more justice, especially like a la the Penguin, just a deeper dive into like
especially if it's going into the past and leading up till now.
Oh yeah,
and then after the series, we get the movie with Batman and the Court of Owls.
You would need a show with adjacent to a movie.
Yeah, do the entire miniseries and then like the next year cap it with Batman versus the Court of Owls where he takes them down. Like
I really wish that they would do that more. Like because it was one of those things like I didn't even know that Paramount made like the show right for like Knuckles, but like it's good filler when you have that, especially when it's like a good show like that.
Or it builds up hype for more of your products. Like it keeps it in the public's mind.
Right. And it's one of those things like people go, oh, but like fatigue and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, no. You only run into fatigue when you're constantly getting fed crap. Like
if it's all good, nobody's going to complain about too much of it.
Well, like, and I say perfect example, right? Because like Marvel did this for 10 years. They gave you movie after movie after movie after movie for 10 years. And no one complained once.
Until they started being bad.
Because they were good. And then they turned to absolute garbage. And that's when people are like, oh, well, no one's watching superhero movies anymore. No. We love superhero movies. Like this is what we've dreamed of our entire life, is getting a good, a great.
You just want them to have quality.
We want them to have quality. And like that's why it's one of those things that I think that at least for me, is why I consider like the Christopher Nolan Batman to be some of the best Batman movies, because like to some degree,
I'll agree until the third one.
Sure, but it's one of those things that yes, it was more grounded in reality, and it wasn't super like cartoony.
It wasn't super comic booky.
It wasn't comic book, but it was fantastic.
That's still the best
fantastic for Batman. It shouldn't have been interpreted into being the Zack Snyder crisis that it was, because that honestly made it way too off just what the characters were.
Yeah, Superman and Batman are not the same character. You don't need to make Superman brooding.
And he doesn't need to be realistic. He's an alien who has superpowers.
And here's my thing: is there is no reason if we can nail Captain America that we can't do Superman.
That you can't do Superman. Yeah, 1000%.
Because Captain America is the biggest Boy Scout patriotic goody two shoe ever, and we made him a compelling, great character. There's no way you can't do it with Superman.
And it's funny, David, because that's why I don't like Superman. I'm like, he's too basic. He's too white bread for me. Like,
and that's what
no
Captain America basically was. So, and they made that. I mean, Chris Evans nailed it. It was such a good role. We all want more Captain America now. But before that came out, people are like, oh, so he fights Nazis. Oh, you know,
the soups that I want is Injustice soups. That's what I want. Like I would love.
Oh, well, that's what Snyder was going to do. Remember?
Because he's so.
There is a way to do a compelling Superman who is the way he is as the character, and I honestly think that James Gunn, based on the trailer, is going to give.
I think he's going to. Yeah,
I do. There is a way to give like that traditional Superman, like cornbread, just back home Kansas farmer boy aesthetic, but make it still a compelling character.
No,
it's just the challenge of like whether or not the good gives into the bad, or which one will give in first.
Now, to your point of wanting an Injustice Superman, James Gunn did make that movie that was basically if Superman as a child went bad instead of becoming a hero. Which was interesting, but I do believe as long as this is successful, I fully believe within the next 5, 6, maybe 10 years at most, we will get a really good movie that's Superman versus Bizarro.
Yes.
I think we would get
think they're going to be
this movie setting that up.
Yeah, I was going to say this movie seems to be setting up Bizarro.
Exactly. So I think, and I think we'll get a lot of really good, like, honestly, like terrifying Superman-esque, you know, with Bizarro kind of things that I think will help scratch kind of that itch of wanting the Injustice one. But I don't think anybody wants the good guys being evil. I think it's overplayed.
No,
I
so
mean,
it-
I
it's not
do
that I
in
want,
the
like,
way
the
that I
guys
want
being
all the
evil.
old Avengers to come back in Doomsday and just play bad guys.
See, that's stupid. I don't want that.
That's what
And
they're
you're
gonna do.
you're
though.
the same dude. You're
No.
the same one who was like, Craven might be good. Give it a chance. So we're not listening to you with superhero opinions.
Oh, I didn't hear this opinion, Keegan, but really?
Yeah, Keegan wanted this instead of Sonic. We were supposed to talk about Craven. We had to basically have a coup.
We bullied
and
him
say
into
no.
it.
Yeah,
Make
we
people
vetoed his
vote.
ass for sure. Yeah, because that movie, like, you know, it's gonna be bad when people drop the first 8 minutes of their movie to try to drum up hype.
No, it's
I
good.
mean-
We promise.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
Sonic did that too, though. So
Well, I didn't see 8 minutes of Sonic.
Yeah, I was
yeah,
like, what-
they did the
this one
8-minute
or-
opening scene with
They did that
him and
after
Shadow.
the redesign.
Oh, well, that's
No,
different.
they did it for Shadow too. They showed the fight scene with Shadow.
For
They
8
did?
minutes? They showed 8 minutes of the beginning of the movie wouldn't have even had Shadow in it.
No, but whatever scene the extended scene with Shadow was, they released it early.
Are you talking about like when he's in Japan, like escaping
Mhm.
from gun? I
Yeah.
do remember that because they did also they also released Shadow Generations like they did for Sonic, and it's just all the appearances of Shadow throughout the years, and they incorporated that scene from the movie in the game.
That's cool.
That was pretty sick.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I'm
so
sorry. I had no hope for Craven, and I've heard that it's garbage like everything else.
Again, coherent
Yeah, it's just-
story, but also at the same time, it's like, I don't
Keegan,
Back
did you even see it yet?
know.
No.
I
See,
have no.
and Keegan, you
Well-
were like the biggest proponent. You're like, yeah, don't listen to critic scores. Audience said yeah, and you. still
I
haven't seen
mainly
it.
wanted to
It's been
talk
out.
about.
It's been out for a month.
I mainly wanted to
Apparently, that
talk
first
about
8 minutes they
Craven's
showed
Last
people
Hunt.
was the best part of the movie.
Well, see, Craven's
Best
Last Hunt, we can
8
talk about that without having to watch a horrible movie.
I told you
Well,
the best shot we had of
we do have an
Craven's
idea.
Last Hunt was that was gonna be the movie that became No Way Home. Before it
Yeah, I was
became a
gonna-
multiversal movie, it was going to be Craven from Wakanda hunting down Peter Parker, Spider-Man, because the public hated him now.
Yeah,
And that would have been probably an amazing movie. But No Way Home did turn out to be really good, so I'm not super upset because I love seeing the old Spider-Man back. That was great. But I do wish that we would have gotten a Wakandan Craven because that fits his character. Like that makes sense. Unlike the changes they made in this movie.
Well,
Like
The thing that I don't understand about that is like, it's why are they trying to make him a hero? Like,
Exactly.
yeah, he's a
the thing
bad
that kills
guy.
me
He's
is, like,
supposed to be trying to kill Spider-Man. That's
the
the whole
I'm
thing.
Morbius
so
movie.
tired of the anti-hero trope, dude.
Yeah, like the Morbius movie, like this one, like I was like, stop trying to take Spider-Man villains and make them like heroes. Next we're gonna get the Shocker just out here, you know what I mean? Like electrocuting bad guys. Like, what-
Like
just
I
use
want
others.
like I want to see Venom for 20 years trying to just fucking kill Spider-Man before we get any kind of Venom that maybe helps out a little bit.
that maybe helps out.
Yeah.
And I think like it's one of those things like the Venom movies kind of stand on their own a little bit or whatever. Because at the end of the day, like Venom, I think he's probably the closest to an anti-hero,
But
that
not
you
till
can
way
get-
later on in his history.
but not till way
Yeah.
later on. Yeah, that's not his beginning motivation, right? His beginning motivation is very, very villain, very dark to begin with, right?
And that's fine because then the anti-hero turn feels earned.
Yes, and
It
that's what I'm
feels
saying.
like a
You have
process.
to be
It's
the
not
bad guy
just like-
first, because you can't just turn into an anti-hero. Like you got to do some bad shit first.
Yeah, nobody
You can't,
starts out
you
as
can't
an
just go
anti-hero.
shop at Hot Topic for a day.
Right, like even Deadpool, right? Like even Deadpool is considered one of the best anti-heroes, but he starts out as a mercenary.
He's
which,
literally an assassin, basically.
literally an
yeah.
assassin. Like, but he has redeeming qualities. The merc with a mouth, the what is it, the butthole with a heart of gold or something or whatever they say. But you know what I mean? It's like you're exactly right. Sometimes you have to earn it, and most of the time these guys are not earning it. It's just, oh well,
It's
he's
just,
kind of a bad
oh,
guy,
there
but
we
not
go.
really.
Like
We'll
if
talk
they,
about
if they
how just-
really
That
Go ahead.
yeah, just that kind of attitude it takes away from like really good villains where you kind of just trying to muddle the water is, I think, just really dumb because there are people that do objectively good things and people that do objectively bad things, and both will derive pleasure from what they do. Villains can be bad people and like being bad people. I miss those types of villains where they were just bad and you knew they were bad and you knew they
Yeah.
enjoyed being bad.
I don't need a sympathetic villain like I would be okay being like, oh, they're evil because they're evil.
Exactly.
They just like killing people. They want to be in charge and kill people. That's it.
So like I get it. Thanos is a compelling villain, right? Because like to some degree, he was doing what he thought was right. He was going about it the wrong way, but he thought you know what I mean?
I
Like,
still don't understand why he decided to half the population instead of double the resources.
Yeah.
That I don't know.
Well, it's to that point too. It's like at the same point, we don't need to have a philosophical debate about everybody's viewpoint all the time. There could just be somebody who's doing something bad that needs to be stopped without us having to debate the reason as to why he needs to be stopped. It can just be,
in this day and age, you're going to get people that are like, well, maybe Hitler had some good points.
and guess what? You let them explain
you
it.
do
once
get
you
those
say,
people.
that's a
It's
really
terrible.
bad take. Shut up.
It's yeah.
So
No,
you need
I'd
to
be
let
like,
people
I'm going to
say,
stop you
Thanos
there.
had
You
a
don't
point.
even
And
need
guess what? You
you
say
don't
those
have to tell
people.
me.
But David, what if they tell you the Nazis made a UFO?
Ooh,
You say, I have been in the same group chats, and there's a reason why I stopped.
I will be right back. I'm gonna go grab me some water real quick. My throat is getting.
Grayson, while he's getting water, I did want to say, is there anywhere you're planning to go? Maybe like a Disneyland?
Not off the top of my head. Why?
Because you just won the fantasy football championship.
And I got a text from Matt, and I'm like, let's go. But yeah, I saw that, and I was very, hard work, sweat, tears. Team came together. I had nothing to do with it, but just picking the right people, and we're here, man. We're going to Disney World. Virtually, of course. We're going to be doing the tour through Google Maps, walking around the parks. But hey.
You know what? We should film you with green screen, and we'll just like put Disneyland in the back, just you like walking around.
The dinosaur ride's still open. Oh,
Hey, it's going to be open all next year now.
It's going to be open until 2026.
they reopened it?
Yeah.
They never closed it.
Oh,
Well, they
started working on the
extended it.
outside, but they didn't close it.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. What was the one next to the ride? It was like the more kiddie section is where they're starting.
Yeah, Dino
Mania or
Dinorama.
yeah. Yeah. So speaking of January, what are we watching? Because there's only one movie I know, and I don't know if I want to watch it.
What's the movie you know?
It's a Blumhouse movie
Well,
with
what's the
practical
movie?
effects. That I don't. The tone might be good, but the monster might be terrible. Is what
Hey,
I'm
get
saying.
this. So apparently there's a recent rumor that Andrew Garfield not only is going to be coming back playing Spider-Man, of course, he's also going to play a Reed Richards variant.
I'd be down with that.
I did see somewhere where they were in talks to recast King.
No, apparently she dropped the entire lawsuit and said it was a misunderstanding. So they're now saying that he might come back at the beginning just to be killed off by Doctor Doom.
Just like Thanos was in Secret
Kind of,
Wars.
Yeah.
Grayson,
No, that's a
what
good
do you,
question, though.
what do you think about that
Movies.
Blumhouse movie?
I mean, based on some of just the new trailers, I think it has the potential to be good. I mean, it's either that or the only other movie that I know that'll be worth watching is probably going to be Companion, because that's an A24 movie, and I think that might be pretty trippy to go see.
Okay, let's see. Wait, why would you say that and not Wolfman that you've been talking about for months?
That's what we were talking about, the Blumhouse
Oh, did you
movie.
say?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be down to see Wolfman, but I'm still really, really concerned about how that's going to look and what that's going to just.
Yeah. So I've seen the director was like, well, I wanted to go practical, and I know everyone loves the wolf, but it's different. I'm like, just make it a practical Wolfman. I mean, that's how they originally did it. It's not hard.
Yeah, this is definitely one of Lee Winnell's bad horror takes, and I think he kind of needed to step off the ledge for that and not fight that fight so much.
I mean, if we
Apparently, Seven is having its 30th anniversary come out in January.
I could do that.
What day is it?
It comes out January 3rd.
Ooh.
Let me see.
What happened? What did I miss?
We're
We're trying.
Will be our next pop culture movie.
Yeah, it might be Wolfman.
Like
See, but the fact that you're saying we should do it makes me think it's going to be bad.
I've already said I'm very scared. So did any of you guys see the Invisible Man they did?
I
No,
did.
the second
I
one
thought it
was
was great.
I think it's by the same director.
It is.
So I think tone-wise it can be good, and maybe just lighting and stuff will fix the Wolfman.
I mean, let's be honest. We know that classically Hollywood puts the worst movies in January.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's it's kind of a crapshoot this month.
I assume February is going to be Captain America, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Now
Okay.
I'm curious. Like, I wonder if there's like any good hit movies that came out in January. Like,
It's very rare. It does happen, but
that's what I
they
mean. Like, I'm trying to like
traditionally-
focus in my brain now. Of, like,
anything they think is going to be bad, like the Rock's Hercules movie,
oh,
they pushed to January.
it was a January movie.
Yeah.
Well, it's you know what? Because I feel like Christmas is toss up too. Like they
Christmas
think
is when they think it's going to be good movies, though. They may
That's what
not
I'm
be
saying,
good,
like,
but they think it'll be good. That's when they try to put that in. Thanksgiving's the number one. That Thanksgiving Christmas area, that's when everybody goes to movies. So they want whatever's going to be the most money maker because
Well, then
everybody has their
everybody goes in the
families.
summer. That's why like
No.
Marvel drops all of their hot
Summer
ones. Like,
summer is tent pole like monster blockbuster,
Yeah,
money
your Jaws,
makers.
your Star Wars, your
But the big like people are going to win Oscars tends to be Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's when they try to push those.
the fancy time.
Exactly.
We're not here for action. We're here for this actor to pour his
Right.
heart out movies, huh?
I mean, that's why you'll often see Disney's big animated or Pixar movie typically ends up being a Thanksgiving release.
That
So
makes sense.
wild
Because it's a big
wild
family.
guesses.
Oh.
Wild guesses. What is your guess for number one release in January all time? It looks like
Fifth Element.
Oh, Jesus. I don't even know what came out in January.
it's not The Revenant. The Revenant came out in January, apparently. It's also not Cloverfield. There you go. 2 off the list.
Wait, and then, what was the? We think
I
the
can
highest
tell you what
grossing
it
movie?
is. Yeah.
I like how everyone's like, oh, let's hit the Google search.
Give us a hint. Give us a hint.
Okay, let me. It has. It was widely panned for the use of a baby doll.
American Sniper.
Grayson got it.
Okay, to give you guys an idea of how bad Januaries tend to be, number 12 of all time was the re-release of Star Wars A New Hope.
The re-release.
The re-release. So it's not even a new movie. So a re-release of a movie. Great movie, fantastic, one of the best Star Wars, but still, the re-release of a movie is the number 12 of all time to come out of that month. Kung Fu Panda 3 is number 4.
Glass is 5, yeah. Glass and Split. So
Well, wasn't it because Glass didn't do good, right?
Okay.
But Split did.
Number 17, best of all time, is Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Paul Blart Molly Cop.
And that's
Hey.
two below The Green Hornet starring Seth Rogen.
hey, number 11's 1917. That wasn't too bad.
The
Okay,
1917 was
okay.
pretty good.
Number 22, and I think this was actually a surprise for them because this was a big surprise. Mean Girls came out in January.
Great movie though.
But seeing, I don't think they had a lot of high expectations is why it became, I think, such a hit. I don't think they ever were like, oh, this is going to do huge numbers.
Yeah, because I guess I mean Lindsay Lohan was the hottest one at that time, like during that time or whatever. Because
Mhm.
like realistically, what's her face wasn't a household name yet.
Yeah, no, they pushed it as just like it's a teen comedy.
Yeah, yeah.
They never
there's-
thought it'd be the cultural phenomenon that it's become.
Well, I don't think they thought that about American Pie when they brought that one out too. You know what I mean? That was supposed to be
You
just
know,
a stupid raunchy.
I miss the teenage sex comedy like genre.
Yeah, they don't make them
We
anymore.
don't really get them anymore. I loved it when we had like the National Lampoons out, like the Van Wilder movies, American Pie, Euro Trip, stuff like that.
I'm trying to think now, like what the
Yeah, what
last-
else came out? Like Girl Next Door, I think, was at the same time.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think of like the last like high school, like sex comedy like that came out that I can think about that came out and like really I'm stopping at 2008 right now. I'm getting like super bad. Was like no maybe
Right.
does 21 Jump Street count? I don't think that counts, right?
See, the ones they do now, it takes it way too dark. It's like everybody's on drugs. It's like
Euphoria.
yeah,
Yeah, I was
Essentially.
gonna say Euphoria.
it's
Yeah.
Euphoria. It's not goofy, fun comedy, sexual hijinks kind of thing.
Well, that's what we want sex and fun, not like sex and depression. Like yeah.
We have that at home.
Huge difference. We have that. Yeah, we have that at home.
All right, so should we just do Wolfman for January? We can do it the Monday after, which would be The 16th.
Is there anything good coming out streaming?
For 20th. We could do it on the 20th. I was like, when does Wolfman come out?
Okay, because I missed part of that conversation. Are they making a new Wolfman?
They
Or
are.
Yeah.
It's a Blumhouse one. It's not going to be actual Wolfman. It's just called Wolfman.
oh,
And
interesting.
Blumhouse actually likes January because I know Megan was another January movie that did well.
The robot one, the robot Megan,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that was a surprise hit because I know they're making another one.
little
Mhm.
dance moves.
Okay, here we go. Everything coming to Netflix, Disney, another major streaming service in January. This looks like all old stuff, not like new movies.
It's a bunch of comedy specials too.
Oh no, here we go. Okay, the ones that are coming out. Don't Die, The Man Who Wants to Live Forever is a new documentary. The Love Scam, Missing You, and Number 24.
Number
Don't know anything about
none of those sound remotely interesting, if I'm being honest.
Not
So
even
if-
a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, just out of name value, I think Wolfman might be the one people want to click on too. And then at least we have
Or-
Captain America in February.
Or I do have another suggestion. It looks like coming to Netflix in January, we can do a deep dive on the live action Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed.
I'm all for Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed.
Because apparently both of them are coming to Netflix.
It does look like Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 is also coming to Netflix.
Oh,
That
But
and-
hold on. Batman: The Mask of the Phantasm is coming to HBO Max.
is that a new animated?
Phantasm. No, that's an older one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's back in the 90s.
Yeah,
I saw
it's
Killing
Batman
Joke.
did-
I never saw Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, it's
Mask of the
Pretty
Phantasm is really a really good Batman story.
yeah. At some point, we'll cover it.
We've also got
I liked Justice League Dark. That was a good one, as far as animated ones go.
there's a lot of Justice. We got Justice League versus Teen Titans, Justice League Doom, Justice League Throne of Atlantis, and Justice League War, all coming out.
What is it? War and versus
I think-
Teen Titans was actually pretty good.
Yeah, War's the second one I think in that series because it starts with Flashpoint.
Which one is the one where because it's essentially Batman taking down everybody.
Oh, that's where he had like the plans to take down everyone, and then
Yeah.
somebody hacked him or whatever.
Yeah, and somebody hacked him because it's one of those things like he's like, wait a minute. Batman's like, hold on. These are my plans.
That was
And
such
people
a
are like,
good,
"Bruce,
that was such
what?"
a good comic series when that happened.
Oh
I
yeah.
think it
It
was
is
called.
Justice League Jam.
I think it was Tower of Babel is what it was called or something in the comic book version.
Was it?
Yeah. When
All I know is that that's a
somebody took all his
fantastic
plans.
story because it is one of those things of like Bruce being
It's
like, "Shit,
Doom,
how-
Justice League Doom is what you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah, how do I counteract my own plans to take
they're
everybody
just-
out?
yeah. They're like, well, what was your backup? And he's like, you guys.
You guys,
I mean, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. That was just the list for January 1st. They have different date. Oh my god.
You have to go to comicbookproject.com. They have all the releases for January broken down by service.
We could do Edge of Tomorrow.
I love that movie. That's a
They're making another one.
okay.
They've been
How?
saying that for like
It-
10 years now.
That's what it was
How?
cleaned up, and there was no tied loose ends. Like it was
Okay.
just
I have a question. When it comes to picking these movies, why did we do Joker 2 in October instead of Beetlejuice?
ooh.
Because we hate ourselves.
And
Because
you're
sadism doesn't know any bounds, and I couldn't stop because I wanted to see it too, and I got abused.
I mean, to be fair, the first one was good. So
But it wasn't better than Beetlejuice.
You just said
Can
the
you
first.
can you
That's
tell me
not nearly
that
as
the
good.
first Joker movie was better than Beetlejuice, the first Beetlejuice movie? Keegan, is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying, I was more worried about Beetlejuice 2 and where the
I wasn't. As soon as they said it was going to be a musical, I was very worried about Joker 2.
Yeah, but then they hired like Lady Gaga, and you're like, okay, so maybe they're trying. Like maybe it'll be like,
Nope.
and
When they
then
hired her
no,
and said she's
no.
Harley Quinn, that made it even worse.
Yeah,
I never had any hope for that.
I didn't have any hope either when they said, "Oh, we have," and I was like, "No, stop!" Like I said earlier, give it a rest. Like let Joker and Harley Quinn breathe. Like it's just there's so much of it. It's smothering. Like
Guys,
you don't give people time to appreciate or like actually like absorb the character before you come out with something new and stupid like with the same characters. It's just
we can do documentaries, right?
If they're new for the pop
Okay.
culture.
I got
Just
one
because
for us. You ready?
I'm trying to keep these ones to like new releases since we do like
This is
deep
brand
dives
new.
on older
This is
releases.
brand new. Are you ready? You ready? Coming to Netflix, January 7th. New Netflix documentary. Jerry Springer fights camera action. A deep dive into the world of Jerry Springer.
How much of that? Yeah, how much of that can we talk about without getting YouTube to ban us, though?
All of it.
You
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's a documentary, Keegan. It's got to be pre-selected anyway, pre-picked through, so to speak.
I don't know what this is. Apparently coming to Paramount Plus on January 8th, a new series called The Price is Right at Night.
That sounds like a show about.
Is this like a
Women of the Night.
prostitution? Yeah, that's
Sounds like that's
I don't know what to think about that.
What's in March, David? Because we know February.
I will also say if you want to put it in there, it looks like Peacock is trying to capitalize on the Wolfman thing. They're putting the original and the 2010 one on their service early January. If we wanted to talk about like the legacy of the Wolfman.
And it would tie in because Dark Universe. We can talk a little bit about that. Universal.
Linked up at the theme park, yeah.
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore comes out in March of 2025.
I was kind of upset, but at the same time I go, no,
Okay.
Adam Sandler might have learned his lesson.
Okay, guys, bear with me here. This is a legitimate what I think we should do instead of Wolfman.
Bear Grylls?
And I think we'll all enjoy it. No, this is real.
Oh.
I forgot this was coming out, and I'm actually super psyched about this. January 10th, all episodes streaming of Goosebumps The Vanishing.
I would rather watch that than The Wolfman.
Because it's the next season of Goosebumps, and it looks like it's going to go hardcore with the books. It looks really good.
Does it?
What is it streaming on?
It's going to be Disney Plus.
Okay, good. Because
I remember the original Goosebumps like show that they had like back in the day.
No, did you not watch the one that came out last year?
No, they made
Yeah.
another show.
They had a whole series, and it took from different books, and it was all a story.
That's cool.
Like Slappy was in it. They had a lot of references. It was okay. Like it wasn't great, but it was good. It was decent. But
Yeah.
this one looks even more like it's gonna go like hardcore into the books. It looks like it does like Horrorland is in there at some point.
Dude.
Don't go into the basement.
Don't go into the basement.
And David Schwimmer is the dad that's like doing experiments in the basement, like growing things.
Nice.
Like it actually looked like, go watch the trailer if y'all haven't seen it. It actually looks really good.
I might actually have to pull it up and check that out.
For March, I got our movie, Snow White.
Hey,
Keegan, it's gonna be the movie of the year.
Keegan, on that same note, I just remembered that I'm not going to have any access to the internet for an entire month in March. So you guys have fun.
Actually, Mickey 17 comes out in March. I'm kind of digging that movie. I think it could be good.
Which
What
one?
movie?
Mickey 17, the movie with Robert Pattinson, where like he signs the contract to like work until he dies, and every time he dies, he gets cloned and comes back to work like odd jobs.
Okay, so my choices for March personally, and of course this is up for everybody else. I'm very interested in. We could potentially do How to Train Your Dragon, the live action,
Is that coming out in March?
because there's a lot to talk about on that. It comes out. No, that's June. I'm sorry. It was just next to this. I'd love to do The Electric State, which is that new movie by the Russo brothers, and it's Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown, and it's like a future where like robots took over with like their toys and stuff, and it looks very trippy. But it's a Russo brothers movie that looks really good.
Interesting.
Speaking of which, too, the Daredevil Born Again series is getting released on March 4th.
Oh, see,
Oh.
I think we might want to wait till April for that though, so we can see all of it.
Good
Because
Are
I
they
think
gonna-
it's a
Are
bye
they
week
single
thing.
releasing it? Ugh. Oh.
Or we could even do like a shorter thing where we just meet for like 30 minutes once a week about Daredevil and finish that as it goes.
So Goosebumps, is that releasing all at once or is it doing the same thing?
I believe it's all at once. We'll have to check. Because if it's not, we should just do Wolfman. But it looks like it's all episodes at once for Goosebumps.
Yeah, I was gonna say because we could almost do Wolfman and then do like a little mini episodes for each episode
Of Goosebumps.
of Goosebumps. Yeah, because then we can just double dip and try to make something out of a bad January.
Jesus, this poster looks
Goosebumps.
crazy
Yeah.
too. It's like David Schwimmer's head with a tree exploding out of it.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah, I saw it.
Let's see. Season 2, the entire first season is scheduled to air. The second season is scheduled to debut on Disney and Hulu January 10th, consisting of 8 episodes. Okay, and it looks like the new season is going to be Stay Out of the Basement, The Haunted Car, Monster Blood, The Girl Who Cried Monster, The Ghost Next Door, Welcome to Camp Nightmare, and more.
They're doing the haunted car, dude.
That's a deep cut.
So this is how I think we should do it. We should still do Wolfman as like the deep dive because we can, or the pop culture one, but then do like little mini-sodes about each episode of Goosebumps.
I mean, I've thought in the past about starting a podcast on nothing but Goosebumps, so it's fine by me.
Because I mean,
There's tons of content from the books to the old series to the movie.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Goosebumps, dude, I grew up on Goosebumps. I fucking love Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Pretty vast. Yeah.
So when does that one start? The 10th?
Something like that. Yeah, we can figure that out.
Okay. So let's plan on doing Wolfman as its own thing, and then we'll do little mini-sodes about each Goosebumps one.
Cool bumps.
Cool bumps.
Cool bumps. Okay, so then let's see. That means I got to watch the old one and the new one.
No. So, I mean, I would say watch the old one just because it was good, but they're just like the books. They're deliberately not doing it where like you have to watch season 1 to watch season 2. It's different characters, different like it's going to be its own set of stories.
Kind of like Twilight Zone, where you didn't have to watch each episode to know what was going on.
Yeah, like season 1 was its own overarching thing with the same characters and all with stuff happening. Season 2 is its own.
Same thing. So we're doing season 2.
Yes,
what
it's
it's
going to be the new one.
Okay.
Yeah,
what's
we
it on?
can. Disney Plus.
It'll
It'll be Disney Plus or Hulu. It's going to be on both.
Okay, cool. Well, I have the Disney Press, so good old
Yeah.
Wolfman.
And this one, and you can even look at like the marketing stuff. Supposedly, this is going to be like a pretty dark version of it. Like they're going darker than they did with the last season.
Oh, dark as in horror, or just like dark as in like shit's
Like-
messed up, yo.
Probably both, but I don't think it's ever going to get like too scary because it's still Goosebumps. I mean, it's coming to Disney Plus, so I don't think it's going to be like rated R level of anything. It'll still be like PG-13. You know?
I was talking about Wolfman, not Goosebumps.
Oh, Wolfman's horror. That's hardcore horror.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, wait a minute, what are we talking about here? Because I was like, I thought Wolfman was horror, but
I
Yeah,
think it's
not only
rated
that-
R.
But from what
Yeah.
I've seen, he doesn't even turn into a wolf. It's just some weird creature thing.
like a chupacabra.
Man, dude, I would love a horror series based on El Chupacabra.
That would be sweet. But I feel
But
like
they-
Not
native
the
novel.
dog one, but like the old school like alien with green
With
alien with
spikes?
spines.
the
Yeah.
spikes, yeah, well, long tongue, the little goat sucker, absolutely.
Yeah, like, and that would be the sequel. El Chupacabra, the goat sucker returns, you know, stuff like that.
Do you guys know they're making another Final Destination movie that's coming out in May of next year?
Are they
No.
resetting or is it going to be a continuation?
Continuation. It's called Bloodlines. So it's going to apparently be like the relatives of the people that died in the past movies.
So they lost me after like 2 on that, but I'm not going to lie. I loved the twist of the one that was like number 4 or 5, where the end of that was them getting on the plane that was from the first one.
That was good, dude.
And they didn't get off and they died. And that's how they, like, the rest of the main characters died in that movie. And it was a prequel the whole time.
That's
I loved that.
Like, that's a cool twist. Yeah, that
Yeah,
worked.
that's
Like,
an actual
super
good
cool.
twist. It
Yeah.
wasn't like convoluted and like what? Like it was like, oh shit.
We weren't
'Cause
trying to
you-
subvert
Because you even
expectations out
see
here,
like
yeah.
the original characters freaking out and getting off the plane, and you're like, wait, what is? Oh my god.
Oh, that's the plane. That's the plane. Yeah.
Okay, so before we forget to do this, Keegan, you should ask us what we rate Sonic 3.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we'll start with you, Nolan. Nolan, final thoughts, rating, and recommendation for Sonic the Hedgehog number 3.
Say yeah. Sorry, got a little off the rails there. My ADD kicks in pretty hard. But that's what happens when you got a fast brain, right?
Gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast, baby. All right. So overall, I give this Sonic the 3 with the Shadow the Hedgehog. I give it a solid 8 out of 10 for everybody, right? Because it's one of those things like I could give it like a kid's rating or an adult rating, but I think legitly like for people like me who actually grew up on the material, played the games, did stuff like that, solid 8 out of 10. If you want to take your kids to a fun movie to watch that is going to keep them sort of pretty much engaged with pretty colors and things like that, also an 8, pretty solid. I enjoyed it immensely. I didn't go in with super high expectations, mostly because it was one of those ones that I was like, man, a third movie in a series like this usually is the lacking one, right? The Back to the Future, the Wild West Back to the Future, if you will. So wasn't expecting too much. However, I was hoping they did something cool with Shadow, and they 1000% impressed me because they did something cool with Shadow. They made him, a pretty cool character and a pretty good like antagonist to Sonic. And then obviously dancing Robotniks and Super Saiyan Sonic. Awesome. Loved it. So yeah, so like I said, I give it a solid 8 out of 10.
Grayson.
Yeah, feelings are pretty similar to Nolan's. I give it honestly an 8 out of 10. If you're like a Sonic fan and you get like all the references to it, I honestly would give it an 8.5. But if that's like something that you're familiar with and you can kind of get that little bit much more enjoyment out of the movie, definitely would give it an 8.5. But for like general audiences and, for honestly wide spectrum, 8 out of 10. It's good for kids. It's good for older kids. It's good for young adults. It's good for, families. And honestly, you don't have to see any of the other movies for this one to make sense. It's just a cool adventure. You can kind of just pick up where everything else kind of left off. They don't deal too much with what happened in the past. They just deal with the adventure as it is. Love seeing Keanu Reeves as Shadow. Fit perfect. I too, when I first saw the trailers, I was like, this could go one of two ways. It could either be really good like the last two were, or it could be super corny if they, don't do this the right way, which they did. All, the fan service and all the just the callbacks, like the gotta go fast, follow me, the Sonic Adventure 2, just like chords and like actual orchestral music in the movie, fantastic. We didn't talk about it too much, but I do want to bring it up. The soundtrack in this movie, amazing. Just with the stuff for the Dancing Robotniks or just all the chase stuff, the fight scenes, all of it was fantastic. The last half hour of the movie, best part of the movie. The fight scenes, the graphics, just all of it. Especially if you played the games, it definitely feels like you're watching the playthrough and the cutscenes of those games again, like with when they release all the gun mechs out of the space station. Just going through and seeing them dash through all those robots, just blowing them up. Takes me back to playing the video games like I did back as a kid. Just all the references with the chows and all that other stuff too was, when it hits that much harder because that they cared enough about this material to put that in the movie, and then you can get that much more out of it. But it's not distracting from the movie by any means, and it doesn't make the movie, like grind to a halt to give you that fan service. It's incorporated into the movie. So overall, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Even if you're not a Sonic fan, it's definitely worth checking out because it's a funny movie. Jim Carrey's at the top of still peak performance, still hilarious. If this is how he goes out, I have no issue with that because he did fantastic in this performance.
David?
Just like Team Sonic, I think we are all on the same page. Definitely giving it a very solid 8 out of 10. I think it was fantastic. This is one of those rare trilogies that got better as it went. There's no question after this that I will definitely be seeing the fourth as soon as it comes out. It got me hyped up. They're treating the property exactly the way they should. They're doing fantastic. As mentioned, I think that they do a great job of throwing those references in there without it distracting. It's nice little kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge without taking over, being like, look, it's that thing. It's more like, oh, that's, And there's probably more that you'll catch when you see it on a second viewing. So I think that's fantastic. You can walk into this without having seen anything at all and still have a great time. It's explained nicely enough that it's still a solid story without having to do any homework on it or think too hard. I think it's great for kids. I think it's great for kids at heart. I think anybody who enjoys just a good old-fashioned, fun, not so serious adventure movie, this checks all the boxes. Something we didn't really mention, the scenery on the sets and stuff was beautiful in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
All the places they go when they're fighting, when they go to Egypt, when they go to the hidden layer lab in the mountains, the volcano, like knocked it out of the park. Special effects, fantastic. The voice casting, spot on. Everybody does such a good job of their roles, casted beautifully. I'm honestly psyched to see where it goes from here. They did a great job of setting up just enough teaser to make you want the next one. You know, got to go fast, and they definitely did.
Definitely left you leaving wanting more.
Exactly. This is a race that I don't want to end anytime soon.
Fair.
I think I forgot to bring out the cutscenes at the end or the mid-credit scenes. Just that metal.
Again,
Sonic.
it's Marvel level of building hype and anticipation, and they're doing it just enough that it's not like, because there's some in credit scenes you'll see and you're like, oh, they're doing that, or like they did too much on that. No, this is the perfect just little appetizer, you know, just to wet your palate and be like, we got more for you. Come on back.
And it's not, to your point, it's not something random. It's just, it actually builds up that anticipation. Not just ants playing drums. It's something that actually makes you excited for the next movie.
Y'all come on back now, you hear? Yeah, absolutely.
And unlike Marvel, because I will say in the Marvel credits, a lot of those end scenes are super hype. If you're somebody who knows Marvel, the Sonic ones, you don't necessarily need to know who these characters are to be excited about it. You see that it's a new thing, and that's enough to get your attention without you needing to know who it is.
Right.
So they're
if you know who
nailing
it
it.
is, it just adds just the extra cherry on top. Right
Exactly. Like it's even
there to
better
give
to
you the
you,
whole
but
Sunday.
it's still, you don't leave just being like, I don't care who. You're like, oh, that's exciting. I wonder who that's going to be, you know? So I think they're nailing it. They're doing a great job. I don't understand why it's taken this long to get really good video game adaptations going, but I'm grateful that we live in this era where it's happening.
Well, they had to make a lot of mistakes first before they started figuring it out.
You gotta crack a lot of eggs before you make that omelet.
A lot of eggs, unfortunately. Keegan, what about you? What do you give it, my man?
Oh, 1 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding. No, I saw it in the theater, and actually I picked like up front, and then all of a sudden like these people like surrounded me. I was like, man, there was like a whole theater you could go sit in. Luckily they were quiet, but no, it was I really enjoyed it. I'd say, like you guys, solid 8 out of 10. I think casting Keanu Reeves was exciting but worrying, because you never know like how it's going to come over. It's going to be too strong, but it fit in just fine. It never like took me out of the movie at all. Like it fit who Shadow was, and you get a lot of callbacks. Like he rides his motorcycle, he has his gun at one point, right? You're getting a lot of these weird and wacky things, you know. Robotnik, or I should say the super weapon has Robotnik's face and mustache, which is just such a video game thing.
But it works though. Like because like when we saw it, we laughed and chuckled. We were like, it looks like got the
so
mustache
good,
on the ship, dude. Like that's funny. Sorry, like
you got to make time for personal branding.
Do you think that just because like we bring up the Keanu Reeves thing, small tangent, do you think that he will reach like Nicolas Cage levels of like oh, Nicolas Cage is in this, like, because it's like Nicolas Cage, good or bad, you know what I mean? Like, do you think
I think Keanu Reeves
like that
will be, I think he'll be known more for good.
Okay.
I think it's very few movies that he hasn't been like decent movies. I don't think he's had like a lot of, like, Nicolas Cage, it's a fair 50-50 on like stinkers versus great movies. But I think Keanu Reeves, I think his good has definitely outweighed his bad.
Well, if you believe
like or whatever they called it, like, that
apparently, like, he's really selective with the roles he picks. If you believe like what you read on any of like the Instagram posts or insider reports or whatever, but apparently he is particular about what he picks.
He's got a lot of morals. He has to like actually believe in it or have a good reason to do it.
Fair, because and it's one of those things like back to like the cyberpunk thing real quick. Like he kind of gives me some like Johnny Silverhand vibes, like with Shadow.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like just a little bit, right? Which I think is a good thing, right? Because like overall, Johnny Silverhand was a cool character. So, but that's even cool that like he cares about the roles and he is very particular and stuff. So cool.
Because he also doesn't mind doing goofy things. Like he was even in SpongeBob in like a cameo.
Mm-hmm. Like,
didn't he play like a goofy dude too, or some lady's boyfriend in like one of the movies?
Probably several.
No, it was
Well, I mean, he was
Ali
Ted
Wong
in
or
Bill and Ted's
whatever.
Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, but also obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Still one of my favorite roles. I don't care if it's a goofy movie. Okay, I love that movie.
Dude, Bill and Ted, fantastic.
There's no
love
shame.
them.
Love Billy.
Those movies are the very best version of Billy the Kid that's ever been on screen.
I like it. I like the take. One last quick little Wild Stallions tangent because I don't think I've showed you this, right? So got the T-shirt. I've got another Bill and Ted's, but
He just comes in with Alex Winters, who's been in the background the whole time.
no. But I have these bad boys, which are the ones that they
That's
wear in the
super
movie
cool.
with.
Pretty sick. Oh, the wall stands on the back. That's sick.
Yeah.
Love
So, like to rock those bad boys. They're high though. Like that's a lot of tongue, dude. Like, yeah, full on like 80s style.
you have the Back to the Future ones, right?
I don't have the actual like Nike mags that they have, but I do have a pair of shoes that have the auto lacing technology in them.
Nice.
And maybe in a future episode, I will showcase them for you because it really is cool as shit. But the problem is they're probably not charged because there's like a battery in them and you have to charge them.
I mean, why can't we invest more in stuff like that as opposed to Cybertrucks?
I don't know. I really don't. It boggles my mind sometimes because I auto lacing shoes, by the way, are super cool. Like every time I put them on, I'm like, zzz, and they go zzz, make the noise. I was like, it's just so cool. I feel too cool for school right now in these shoes that lace themselves. It's amazing. But anyways, back to your review.
No, I just really liked it. I think like a lot of us, we weren't sure how they were going to handle the third one because third movies obviously get the bad rap of
They do.
when do they work out, but I thought it worked out, and they've done it in a way where they're not overpopulating, like we've said with characters. I don't know. I don't really have anything bad to say. I mean, I laughed a lot, especially Jim Carrey. I thought he stole the show a lot of the time, especially playing the two characters and feeling vastly different, and I love their little fourth wall break too, where they're like,
Oh yeah,
almost like we're
people playing the same character
in a movie.
Yeah. I love it. Like I can lightly tap the fourth wall too.
Yeah.
Proposal.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that was amazing. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Like that's just to work that in there because like it works it in there, but it doesn't also feel out of place at the same time.
Right.
It fits with like the rules of that universe.
1000%. Yeah.
If they did any more than just that one reference, it would have been too much. That was just the right amount.
Yeah, and I think he'll come back. Like we've talked about, I don't think it'll be next movie. I don't think, at least right now, I don't think they're planning to like kill him off. It's hard to kill off Robotnik, right? I feel like at some point they'll bring him back. My only worry is they're gonna be like, he's the one creating, Metal Sonic. I'm like, please don't. We'll just give him a rest.
No, it won't be because he would have had it like he would have brought it up in this if he was making Metal Sonics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I took my daughter. We watched it, and she enjoyed it. She laughed a lot, so I think that's good to say.
One last thing I do want to say is I really appreciated the video game accurate Robotnik suit at the very end there, where it had like little attachments on there and everything. I thought
Yeah.
that's a nice touch.
I was like, the jetpack was next level. I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
where
oh,
he's
jetpack.
going across his.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
overall,
no, and
good experience, guys.
But yeah, I mean, they've got enough good credit with me now. They could do 2 bad movies.
And they're still covered. They're still covered on credit for sure.
Like if this one would have been bad, I would have been a little hesitant on the 4th, like let some other people see it first. But I'm already bought a ticket for 4, and if 4 was terrible, I'd probably still give 5 a fair chance.
Still get after.
Do you
the
think
first
we'll
3,
get a Shadow spinoff?
Probably, or at least a
You
show.
know
Or
what?
something.
That would be cool.
Maybe.
I think if they did like David said, like the Knuckles show, but they just elaborate and expand on his like time with like Maria to like give you that extra
Either
backstory
that, or
and-
what did he do after he like came back? Because Sonic and them still think he's gone.
Oh yeah.
So
Well,
if we have a
so-
whole series of him getting into stuff up
Yeah.
until like the next movie or something, I'd be okay with that too.
Well, it's just one of those things like because like I feel like if they did the not the backtracking, but like the like flashbacks a little bit, you get to
Do
dive a
both,
little deeper
yeah.
into the character and grow.
Or even where did Shadow come from before?
Yeah, or that, right? And like what led to him being there and stuff. Yeah, that's what I
Right.
mean. Like just a little bit of backstory for flavor, you know what I mean? To kind of like catch him up.
As long as
everybody else.
Keanu would do it, I'm in.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things like I kind of, if I'm being honest, like with Shadow, I get like Mewtwo vibes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just
Where did I
oh,
come from? Why was I created?
Why was I created? You know what I mean? Like I get a little bit of those vibes. I'm a guy trapped in a glass case or whatever. Like, and then I get out and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna wreak havoc. So.
But David, to your point, I think honestly, with the way they hit the four biggest characters that are like the most necessary, they've definitely earned good credit just with the way they nailed the characters to the point where it's like, you know, that even if they have a couple of missteps, it's because they were trying to be a little too ambitious or they just lost sight of
Right.
that.
Like I wouldn't write them off the same way I might have if 3 would have been terrible.
3 would have been terrible.
Yeah. If Shadow would have been like just butchered and been way too edgy, I would have been like,
oh, okay, so he went
we're done.
edgelord, and it's just all right.
Yeah.
We have cast Michael Cera as the voice of Shadow.
Jesse Eisenberg.
right? Or Jay Barrett.
I did like when he was like
Shadow.
he did the Hot Topic joke in there.
That was pretty
also
good.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's gonna be super stupid, but when they introduced Sonic into the movie and he's in the floaty with a chili dog, I'm like, all right, we're in it. And I bet putting anything to the chili dog is just there. I'm about this. Let's go.
Absolutely. If I'm being honest, like I think they earned good credit literally in the first, 5 minutes of the first movie of them being like, here's the design. Ooh, what is that? What are we doing? That's awful. Change it. You know what? We'll change it. We changed it. What do you think now?
And that cost a lot of money to change.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, right? Like they earned some credit right there, like from the get-go of like,
and that's why we went to see the first one.
And that's so it's one of those things like they definitely, I think they understand the assignment, more so than others right now, especially right now, because I think a lot of
Shadow in that just in the tube, just with the red goo. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah,
Tickets bought. I'm ready for this ride. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's go. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, but I think it's telling that a series that could have been DOA has had such success just by a change of listening to the fans and listening to what people wanted. And so I don't know. I think it's good. I'm excited to see where Sonic goes, and
Amen.
We'll see. I'm sure we'll do another pop culture talk when the next one comes out. Now, for anyone watching, Grayson, where could they find you?
Same as
Rolling
always,
around at the speed of sound.
following my rainbow.
Disney World.
Disney World. Following my rainbow. Follow me. But the _Grayman on Instagram. I occasionally post, our work there, but been a little bit of a hiatus due to the holiday season, but probably we'll start doing stuff here and there, but that's pretty much my only spot where I got stuff going up. So,
David, what about yourself? You got any fun episodes that might tie into this that the viewers should go watch?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I do run a very cool travel YouTube channel called Abnormal Voyages, going out finding unique, interesting places all over the world, just like Sonic and his friends. We just had our couple Christmas episodes come out that were pretty awesome, and we are jumping into the new year with some brand new content in the next week or so. So definitely check us out on Instagram and YouTube at Abnormal Voyages.
And Nolan, as a creator of a property where you guys have shown love to a property that maybe the big studios haven't, where can people find you?
So if you've watched any of these before, same place. But it's one of those things that on Instagram, it's Ghostbusters TX on Instagram, and then GB TXRRT on YouTube. If you search that, that'll find us in our little group and some of the little small projects that we've shot and made. And it's funny that you actually bring that up too, Keith, because I was thinking about it, like, because Grayson was talking about like not giving like smaller mid-range like projects and like trying to just like build up some stuff. Because we talk about that all the time, right? Like it's the stuff that we make is like made with like almost zero budget, right? It's really just like me and Aaron and Mike like contributing like our money, like our money and effort to like make the stuff that we make or whatever. And I think we do a pretty good job of making decent stuff within the like the property and all that. But it's like, man, I couldn't imagine if we had some, some semblance of a budget, like the product that we could give people. And it's crazy to me. Like, it's just like Grayson said, like, you guys spent $200 million on this movie for what? Like, just, you know what I mean? It's just so dumb. Like, for what? For you guys to make zero money, but also for everybody to hate this and like lose faith in the product and all that kind of stuff. Like, it boggles my mind sometimes. So it's just one of those things that, when we do stuff like without a budget and it turns out to be quite decent and like a passion project kind of thing where we just love the property and try to, do right by it, is so much better. It's so much more fantastic. And I don't know why a lot more studios don't invest in smaller stuff like that or do stuff like that. Cause like, it's one of those things like we do, I think, some pretty decent stuff with $0. I couldn't imagine if we had a budget of 50,000, even 100,000, which at the end of the day is nothing.
I mean, yeah, I have to say, I think when it comes to movies, the one thing that can replace budget is passion.
Oh, 1,000%. I think it shows, right? It shows in
everything you do.
In something like this, right? Where like Sonic has heart, you know what I mean? You can tell people are invested. They have, their time and their effort in it. But also it's, your project has heart, man. Like people feel that, people see that, like it comes through in your work. And I think we have that, right? Like it's one of those things, like our heart's in the right place, and we definitely want to try to give people good products that that are gonna like and stuff like that. But that's exactly it. The passion, shows through, and your good ideas and your stuff like that are only as good as your writing can be. When you have solid material and good writing, you're almost undefeatable, man.
Well said. Yeah, no, and we'll be back. Obviously, we have Cool Sports Chat tomorrow. I'm trying to think. Thursday we have a tier list coming out. Friday we have a new episode of Colorado's Best Burgers where Nolan's there, and you might get to see Alex sing in a restaurant. I don't know.
J-Man! Yes, that was such a fun one.
How weird would it be if that didn't happen in that episode? It's just Keegan talking out his ass, just like, and you might see this. I don't know. It didn't. He just made that up.
He just made that up.
And everybody's just like, Keegan, why would you even say that? Like,
it would be weird, but I know the waitress came up and when we were leaving, went to Alex and was like, I liked when you were singing. And he was like, what?
I think we were being a little too rowdy, to be honest. Like at the point in time in that restaurant, we were out here having a great time though, just singing and carrying on like a bunch of goofballs.
Once they lit the drink on fire, you're just like, all right, this is good. This is a good time.
Yeah.
And then of course we'll be back we'll be back for more pop culture talk, probably on the 20th. And we'll be doing Goosebumps. We'll do episodic, so 8 episodes, like mini-sodes. We'll let you guys know, as well as we might be doing a book club, Midnight Library, right, David?
I think that's the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
The name of the book, or were you calling it Midnight Library?
Both.
Little column A, little column B. I like it. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't figured out title yet, but that's going to be the first book. It was recommendation.
Honestly,
by Nick.
that's a pretty cool title too. The Midnight Library.
That's what I mean. That's what I was like. Is that what we're calling it? Because that sounds cool.
We'll change
one
it.
of the cool kids.
the Midnight Library podcast.
Midnight Library. Yeah, like it's.
Yeah, so we'll be back with that. We'll let you know as far as details, and just stay tuned. We'll be doing a lot of stuff with everybody and collaborating. So more.
Yes. I was gonna say if we do the book club, I would like to suggest the first book. I'm sure we have like a whole modicum of books and all that.
We just said the first book is literally the Midnight Library.
Oh, well,
That's literally the title.
Oh,
you can
okay.
you can do the second one.
fine. I will take the second book, guys. Final offers. Take the second book, Keegan.
Then don't reveal it now. You'll find that out after the first
After
episode.
the first episode. Okay, yeah. I'll keep it to myself for
Keep them guessing.
a couple minutes. Yeah.
But yeah, more pop culture talk to your left, more from us here on the right. Don't forget to hit that like, give us a subscribe, and let us know going into 2025. Is there a movie you want to see the four of us talk about? Tell us in the comments below, and we'll do a deep dive. Tell us.